Hello and welcome to SpyHards Podcast. I'm Agent Scott.
And I'm Mel Torme. Cam the Provocateur.
You should be careful with that. You don't want to mischaracterize yourself. You may get requests for autographs.
I may, although I think I'd get extra requests now, given that Mel Torme has shuffled off the mortal coil. If I was suddenly making appearances again, the pent-up demand from all those Night Court fans.
What a way to start a comedy episode by talking about someone who passed away.
But bringing it back with Night Court, right? A reference that those out there who remember, they get it.
Well, yeah, and Night Court did come back, and I think has also been cancelled again.
Oh, was it? I heard it was actually pretty good. I didn't watch it, though, in the revamp.
I've never seen a single... The only thing I know about Night Court is Red Letter Media mentioning Night Court, but that's it.
Yeah, I loved it as a kid.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Have you been to court? You don't need to. Don't enjoy it. It's not fun.
No, it's not. I remember I was in law class in grade 12, and they took us for like a day trip to go watch like municipal court, and it was really boring.
I could see that being definitely very boring. I was hoping you were going to say that they like did a fake trial and put you on the stand and really grilled you, but no.
I wish. That would have been fun.
That would have been fun. And speaking of fun, we need to talk about Rogue Nation before we talk about this week's film.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
We've ruffled some feathers, Cam.
I knew we would. Going into that review, I knew where I stood, and I assumed I would be the outlier and that it would easily make the knock list, and I would be the one saying, it's not one of my favorites. And I was genuinely shocked when things didn't go that way. Yeah, because for those who don't know, we don't discuss this in advance. It's not like we all, right before we hit record, are all like, hey, what do you think? What do you think? We keep it locked down and sort of discover where the other one stands over the course of the conversation.
Yeah, although there is a cheat sheet with Cam. If you want to know what he thinks about the film before he records it, check his Letterboxd. He'll have his review on there before he actually records. I've made that mistake more than once.
Although I usually, with the timing of when we actually are recording versus when the episode comes out, I feel like it's so far in the rearview mirror that people don't remember that Cam logged like what was it? The silent command like 6 months ago.
1 star.
Yeah, exactly.
Bela Lugosi snore.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we didn't let Rogue Nation onto the knock list. We definitely ruffled some feathers when we definitely found the Rogue Nation fans out there. And keeping with our tradition this year, we're going to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you. mail@spyhards.com. Drop us an email what you think of this week's film when you finish listening to this review. But let's talk about Rogue Nation. Cam, what have you got first?
Well, over in the land of X, we had a lot of response to this one. First up, I have a message from SpyHards 1985, who was very quick on the draw to get in his thoughts because he felt pretty strongly about this one. And he says, best villain of the series, best female lead of the series, best stunts of the series, best film of the series, best chemistry of the series, best set pieces of the series. Oh, did I mention this was the best film of the series? Yes, I did.
So what SpyHards is trying to say is he kind of likes Rogue Nation.
A little bit, and doesn't necessarily stand with the knock list vote.
He likes Rogue Nation as much as I allegedly like Rebecca Ferguson's feet, which has now become a meme thanks to that episode. That I now apparently have a foot fetish.
Well, you need to stop making those memes.
Oh yeah, that's true. That is me also perpetuating my own mythos.
Yes, but it's funny because like I go through these and I can't argue with like best female lead of the series.
Oh yeah. Just check her feet. I mean, it's great.
Yeah. Oh Jesus! But
can't agree to that.
But there's a few others there where I do quibble. Like best villain of the series, I don't think so. I don't think so. And best set pieces, I am gonna have to stand in opposition to that one.
Yeah, I think they're the two I'd raise an eyebrow at. But that's your thoughts, SpyHards, and we love you for them. I am going to take us over to the world of the Facebook. The great Michael Fenimore says the following. Great idea, SpyHards. A top 10 of Mission Impossible stunts as a future episode when the Mission movies run out. I can't wait for your upcoming thoughts on Fallout. Paul Tweddle was a great guest and co-reviewer. Bring on the Bone Doctor.
Well, that's great.
We did.
Yeah, we did, of course, and that was a great interview. And yeah, I mean, the future will be bright for Mission Impossible fans. Yes, we are working our way through the back half of the films, but there's always roundtables and other fun ideas we can have further down the road.
And it also, like, it's almost a little bit freeing once you've reviewed all the films, because then you can start to dive into more specific discussions.
The minutia, basically.
Yeah. Like, if we were a James Bond podcast or a Mission Impossible podcast, we're probably on the point where we're, like, reviewing, I don't know, the best footwear.
Why do you bring it back to feet, Scott?
I don't know. It's just in my mind now. What about you, Cam? Do you have another one from X?
Yes, I do. From Alison Begas, who says, it's the best in the entire Mission Impossible series. The Vienna opera scenes are breathtaking, and Rebecca Ferguson brought so much to the franchise. I mean, agreed.
Disagree. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I do, again, stand in opposition to the best of the franchise stuff, but that's the kind of the beauty of Mission Impossible is it's a little bit, I mean, Scott, you and I are Star Trek fans.
A what?
If you ask someone, Paramount franchise, so it's all connected here. This is not a diversion. But if you ask people who watch Star Trek Voyager to name the top 10 episodes, no one is going to have the same list. And so I like that Mission Impossible also has a lot of contrasting opinions.
The shoot, the fight.
Wow, that's a deep cut. But
that's a deep cut.
But yeah, it's like I like that Mission Impossible. There's that same kind of like we can all quibble, but it's a franchise that has a really high quality output, with the exception of maybe a couple here or there. But like when it comes to naming the best, there's a lot of arguments for several of the films.
Well, you know, you can kind of extrapolate a little bit, but before I do that, the idea of the Mission films originally was that they were all meant to be tonally different from one another. They were going to have different directors, different, you know, visual styles to one another, and you can see that in the juxtaposition between 1, 2, and 3. It's only when you get to 4 and they start sort of going, oh no, this pattern kind of works, let's stick to this, and then 5, 6, 7, 8 are basically the same film.
Yeah.
Not in a, that's not a derogatory comment, because obviously they stumbled on the formula. Bond did that with Goldfinger. But what Mission does do great in those first sort of 4 or 5 films, is have that breadth of tone and style. But you know, if you look at the Bond films, for instance, it would take different Bonds to usher in those different styles. So you have 5 Connery, 6 Connery, 7 Connery, depending on whatever take you'd like. That's one style, whereas you're getting massive jumps between Mission 1 and 2.
Yeah, exactly. And it does feel a little bit like the Marvelification of films, where Marvel has a very clear house template that all the filmmakers have to follow. And yes, McQuarrie is the one doing those latter Mission Impossible films, but the idea of having visual consistency among all the films and not kind of pushing the audience outside of their comfort zone too much.
Yeah. But pushing the envelope in other ways, like the stunts. But we'll go back over to Facebook. And this one comes from Bob Hathner, and Bob says, it ranks at the top of the series, mainly because of the character Ilsa Faust, which I think is a theme we're seeing in these comments. Is Ilsa Faust was a great find. And I think Rebecca Ferguson did a lot for the Mission franchise. And I'll get to my thoughts as to how I think she was treated later on.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. Over on X, the Bond dossier says, it's the best one. The ending was a tad weak, but it was the series at its peak, with the best ensemble cast they ever had, including Renner, Ferguson, and a terrific Alec Baldwin. By that point, the Mission Impossible films had surpassed Craig's Bond films in terms of thrills and entertainment.
Yeah, do you think they ever really got that back?
The Bond films? Well, if I'm to compare Daniel Craig's last 2 against the last 2 of Mission Impossible, I would argue that Bond went out stronger.
Yeah, I know this is another controversial take that might annoy some people, but I think No Time to Die is a better film than Final Reckoning.
I really think it is, yeah. You can hate the decision, you can hate the reverse engineering going on, but even the villain stuff, is obviously not quite up to par, perhaps. But I think as a film, it's much more confident and better assembled than the Final Reckoning.
I think that's a podcast discussion for another day. But speaking of another day, can you hear that sound, Cam? That's the waves stirring up, and when those waves stir up, they call to me, and I must grab my surfboard, my 12 gauge, and head down. Let's get to it. Cam, are you ready to catch some waves?
Let's get the skeet shooting going.
Hell yes, but before we can surf up, we must introduce our guest, and they tell us they are quite the Val Kilmer expert, which will come in handy this week. And they've also promised that they've been waxing up their surfboard and pumping their 12 gauge. It is editor and YouTube extraordinaire, Emma Logsdon. Hello, Emma. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm really happy to be here. I'm always happy to talk about Val Kilmer.
Well, you just spoiled up the first thing there. Val Kilmer, you're right. Like, we haven't even said the film yet, but that's a great way to jump in. Val Kilmer. You are a professed Val Kilmer fan. I'm not sure what the Val Kilmer sort of fan base is called. Do they have a name?
Honestly, no. I'd say like Kilmologists? I don't know.
Kilmologists?
I don't think so. I've seen some people just refer to them as Kilmers, but I don't personally identify that way.
This is an interesting quandary.
So this could be, this is open real estate.
What do we do, Cam?
I don't know, because I'm like racking my brains to think of like, those kind of cutesy rhyming terms you'd come up with for like fan bases. And at the moment, it's all drawing a blank.
Like the only thing I think of is like Christian Scientists. Like I don't know. There's nothing.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Valophiles? I don't know.
Is there something with Valhalla?
There is.
That?
Oh.
There's something there?
He loved to talk about how he is going to Valhalla, where they will have like, he's a big proponent of a Val pun.
Well, okay. Well, anyone who has a name that's punnable should be doing it. I don't really have one, so I'm glad Val took full advantage of that. But let's dive into your valiant love of Val.
Incredible.
Where does that love come from? Before we get to sort of editing, before we talk about your work with Patrick Williams on YouTube, Val Kilmer, where did that love come from?
Honestly, kind of out of nowhere. I had a friend, like an online friend, who became obsessed with Top Gun and like streamed it for me. Yeah, streamed the both Top Gun films for me. And I was so fascinated by I had sort of heard of Val Kilmer, but I had not really seen any of his movies. So just having heard of him as some sort of, I don't know, mythical Hollywood figure and not necessarily a positive one, having seen the breadth of his performances in the two Top Gun films, I was fascinated because, he's really queening out in the first one. He's letting loose and he's swanning around and he's really, doing something with swagger. And then the second film, it is a much more emotional and nuanced and layered performance, obviously, and then his physical condition. So really, after watching those two movies, I just like Googled him, and he is one of the most fascinating people in the history of the world, I think. Just specifically like his obsession with self-documentation. So like finding out that he had made in basically when I got into him, he had in the year prior released a full documentary about his own life and written a memoir. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to read the memoir now. And then I set myself a challenge to watch some of the movies featured in his documentary so that I could watch the documentary and really like kind of understand. And when I did that, it was like a 2 or 3 week kind of binge of, I'd say like 10 Val Kilmer movies. And then I watched the documentary and I was just hooked. I was really, really obsessed with the way that this artist was obsessed with himself and communicating himself and communicating his artistic vision and who he was to an audience that, he knew that he might not end up seeing for much longer. Like it was sort of, he was trying to encapsulate his whole life, and had been preparing for that for his whole life. Like he started vlogging when he was like 9 or something. So I was genuinely just so drawn to this this kind of like burning hunger inside of him for artistic understanding. And I just never kind of looked back.
And that documentary, My Name is Val, is fantastic as well. And the way it does chronicle.
And so well edited.
Yeah. And it's like expertly made, and just the willingness to put himself very much out there at a time where a lot of people be very private. I just remember the moment that always sticks with me is him doing conventions and he's not well and he has to like pause to like vomit into a bucket.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is someone who he's not doing well financially. He's probably not doing these cons out of love, but it's like he doesn't really have a choice. And just like that show must go on kind of mentality he had.
I feel like I know next to nothing about Val Kilmer. Like just
wow.
drawing inference from what you both said. I haven't seen a documentary first and foremostly, but
I do recommend
seen a lot
it.
Of things. Okay, yeah. I might take that as homework.
It's called Val. It came out in 2021. Yeah.
Okay. But like, I know he did conventions, but the idea of him being in need of money.
Yes. So
surely the man who was in Top Gun and things like that has no need for such things, or had, I should say.
What I find really interesting about Val Kilmer is I think he's one of the people who he really began to struggle artistically and professionally just due to like actual personality differences and interpersonal conflicts that he ran into with people in power, which I don't find to be too common, especially with like handsome, talented, famous white men in Hollywood. Usually just having like a difficult personality doesn't do that, but he was very, very committed to approaching art the way he wanted to, also to his own ego, to having, projects the way he wanted them. And so he really struggled for work. And then also this is something they get into a bit in the documentary, but he experienced a lot of money problems early on because of his father, who was like taking on very bad loans using his name, using Val's name. This was like after Val's, I think he had only done 2 movies at that time. But yeah, and then he had an extremely expensive divorce. It's like one of the longest and most expensive divorces in New Mexico's history, with Joanne Whalley, who actually has some connection to this movie. But yeah, so he was hard up for money, especially also after the financial crash, the combination of divorce and that sort of thing. But I also think Val Kilmer's hard up for money is different from like my hard up for money. So there were things he wanted to do that required more money than you would need to live comfortably.
Yeah, there's people like ourselves who are having like soup for dinner, living on consomme, as they would say. But he's like, this foie gras is not quite right.
He really wanted to sponsor his one-man movie about Mark Twain and Mary Baker Eddy, the founder of Christian Science.
Right. Okay.
So yeah,
I feel like there's a lot of things I need to learn about Val Kilmer, but that's partly the reason you're here. The other half of that coin, because I reached out to you to bring you on the show because I knew you were a Val Kilmer fan. I'd seen you'd mentioned this week's film, which we'll get to in a second. But what I learned in the process of doing my research is you also work as an editor as well. So you've got an eye for film and an eye for how things are put together.
Yeah, actually, weirdly, so I technically have a degree in film, but I mostly was focusing on like online fandom and stuff. So it was really more of a media degree. And then I graduated and became obsessed with movies, and getting obsessed with Val Kilmer really also pushed me into watching more movies. So I did the thing, like the movie a day thing for a while. And yeah, speaking about film is something I'm so passionate about, and editing, as I found, has been something where really what you do have to do is just discuss a film over and over all day, every day for a very long time. And so you really, really have to like talking about and breaking apart movies if you want to work in post-production.
Right.
There has to be a love for it. If you're going to spend 8 hours of your day staring at 10 seconds of a film, you have to really enjoy the craft.
Yeah. So I think, both my work, like on YouTube and in editing, has been
Well, you've just sent me in the other direction. A set of questions. Thank you for queuing me up. My first experience of you was popping up in a Patrick Williams video.
Yeah, I love Patrick. He's great. Yeah.
How did that connection happen?
So weirdly, I went to college with Patrick's first ever intern, and I was just in a class with her, and we were speaking about video essays we enjoyed, and I was like, oh, I love Patrick Willems' videos. And she was like, oh, I was his first intern. I was like, how did you do that? She was like, oh, I just cold emailed him. So then she reached out to him to ask if he would possibly be open to having another intern. I think this was 2018 or 19.
Right.
2019. And he was possibly, he was like, if it's a good candidate, whatever. So yeah, I just emailed him, cover letter, resume, said, hey, I met your intern. It seems like I could learn a lot from you. I really like your work. And yeah, I began interning for Patrick with another intern named Ellie. And we did I learned motion graphics and I made thumbnails. I made that sort of thing. We worked really well together. And then I interned again and then started working for him as like a community manager. And then as a cast member. So Patrick and I guess now we're sort of coworkers, but yeah, he's my friend. And I think because I'm more busy, because I was working full time in post-production. I appear in the videos and I have less of a part in kind of the brand of Patrick H. Willems, but working with him is just really, really cool. It's really, really awesome to work with one person who does every aspect of their craft. I don't think I have the stamina or the bandwidth to do what he does, so I don't think I'll ever become a one person YouTube show.
He's sort of like the James Cameron of YouTube.
Yeah, I would not be a matte painter, cinematographer, actor, mocap, technologist. Not really where I'm at.
Well, I've got a lot of time for Patrick. He did a really good Bond video. I think it was this year.
Yeah.
And
that actually does remind me. My coworker Matthew Buckley. He's an assistant editor, and he's the biggest James Bond fan I know. And he did want me to tell you guys that he really likes your podcast, and he's really excited that I'm going to be on it.
Oh, thank you
to
very much.
Well, thank you, firstly, and send these details our way. Maybe we'll have him on sometime.
I will. He would have have a lot to say. He would be a really good guest. Yeah.
Well, I think then the last sort of piece of the pie before we get to the film. I know people are salivating at the film and the idea of pie, so I apologize for that, folks. But is spy movies. It's our thing. It's what we talk about. Of course, we've got a spy movie to talk about this week, but do you have much of a history with spy movies?
I'm a Mission Impossible super fan. Or
sure.
That might be too ambitious of me to say, but I love Mission Impossible. And I love Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, one of my favorite movies. So I have some history with spy movies, but nothing like the specialization that you guys have. But I like them. I think actually what I really like about spy movies, especially recently, is they kind of innovate new ways to I think they play around with information technology for viewers a lot, which I really like. Like in the recent Mission Impossible movies, there's a lot of telegraphing information to the audience in a way that feels almost video game-esque, using spy technology and things, which I just think is a really good way to make a universally understandable movie. Because oftentimes there's a lot of complicated plots and allegiances. So yeah, I really like the way spy movies kind of play with the medium to make those things intelligible.
It's interesting you go from saying a Mission Impossible fan and then Tinker Tailor. Speaking of unintelligible at times.
Completely. I describe that movie as like a puzzle box that you're watching. Those 3D puzzles that people assemble into a cube. It's like you're watching someone put one of those together and it doesn't look like it's going to happen until the end, at which point you're like, oh my god, a cube.
Right. Have you watched any of the other John le Carré adaptations or watched The Night Manager on TV?
No, but I want to. I had a brief Hiddleston moment, so I do want to watch that one.
If you ever come off your Kilmer, or apparently Tom Hardy is another one of your favorites.
Yeah, no, I tend to move through film by attaching myself to an actor. I think next might be Tobias Menzies, but we'll see.
Okay, I've done that too. I remember watching all of the works of William Hurt out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I watched a movie of him in the 80s and was I'd always thought of him as kind of William Hurt, who's since passed, but I would think of him as kind of boring older man actor, because I would see him pop up in these roles, when he was, getting older, and I'd be like, man, he's always exposition guy or just kind of like the character I thought of as kind of stuffy. And I watched something, I don't even remember what it was. It might have been broadcast news from the 80s. And he was electric. And I was like, what? And so I went down this rabbit hole of watching all the work of William Hurt in like the 80s and 90s. And I was like, this guy was like one of the greatest actors in the world. What happened? Like, did the roles dry up? What was going on?
It's really interesting because you can also track like somebody's professional and economic journey through watching the films that make up their career. It's such a, there's no other medium that really captures people at a moment in time like film. So I think traveling through time by watching someone's filmography, I've found to be so rewarding and also a great way to get me to watch stuff I wouldn't watch otherwise.
I don't think I've ever done a deep dive on an actor's career or a filmmaker's career. I wonder who would be my first choice. Michael Crawford, maybe, or Buster
Oh my
Keaton,
God! But Buster Keaton's a good one. That's
Buster
a good
Keaton
one.
could be fun.
Yeah.
I love me some The General. Okay, well, it sounds like you love a spy movie, but you're not the
I'm not an
sort
aficionado.
Aficionado, which I wouldn't call us aficionados either. I'd call us losers, but at least that's what the people at home tend to think of us as. Anyway, okay, so we've set up this table. We've put our linen down. The plates are out. Table settings are ready. Cam, the question will always go to you, sir. What on earth are we talking about?
Yes, we are talking about the 1984 film Top Secret, starring Val Kilmer and directed by the Zucker brothers and Jim Abrahams, or otherwise known as Zaz.
It's been 6 years of SpyHards podcast. We have had a grand total of 1 million billion emails and messages and texts about doing this film. So it's finally here, folks. Enjoy this intellectual conversation about Top Secret.
That's right.
It will probably run longer than the film, and there'll be about the same amount of laughs.
Not a chance.
Oh.
We can hope.
We can aspire.
Shoot for the stars, I always say.
Yeah.
I've never said that in my life. Okay. Well, if you've never experienced the dizzying delights of Top Secret, here is your synopsis. And unfortunately, for a film that's 90 minutes and doesn't have much of a plot, this is the wordiest synopsis I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
I've never been able to describe this movie to people in like less than 5 minutes.
Here it is. Strap in. I have to shout this because it's got an exclamation mark. Top Secret! Don't tell anyone. Popular and dashing American singer Nick Rivers travels to East Germany to perform at a music festival. When he loses his heart to the gorgeous Hilary Flamand, he finds himself caught up in an underground resistance movement. River joins forces with Agent Cedric and Flamand to attempt to rescue her father, Dr. Paul, from the Germans, who have captured the scientist in hopes of coercing him into building a new naval mine.
A lot of yucks in that synopsis. Really selling the comedy there.
Oh, it's a real knee slapper, that one, isn't it? Yeah.
What I love is how much emphasis they put on the naval mine, as if that matters to the movie.
It's like in one scene, I think. That's
it.
Or just names. Like naming characters where you're like, you don't really need that. At all.
Flamand. Who could forget Flamand?
Yeah, exactly.
I actually can't remember who that character is off the top of my head. Who is Flamand?
Dr. Flamand in Flergendorf prison.
Oh, Flamand.
He's he's the old guy with the sexy lady calendar.
Oh, Michael Gough.
Yeah, from Batman, yeah.
Alfred.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh, he is.
Yes.
Well, you've got Val Kilmer and Alfred together.
Yeah.
And wow. Hammer Horror Legend.
A couple of Hammer Horror Legends in here.
Yeah, Peter Cushing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. First time watching. Does anyone have any sort of memories? I'm sure Cam was there back in 1984 in his late 70s watching the film. Cam, do you have any memories of Top Secret?
Hurling popcorn at the screen saying, "This isn't Fatty Arbuckle." Yeah, no, so Top Secret was a film that, like, I remember actually seeing it my first time because I was really into, like, the Hot Shots films and the Naked Gun films.
Sure, I loved those growing up.
And so my mom, my memory is, and I may be wrong about this, but I was really into those films because I was like 11 or 12. The Hot Shots in particular fell at the perfect time, especially the second one, which I went and saw in theaters. And so I have memories of my mom saying you should see, because I think Hot Shots was going to, or not Hot Shots, Top Secret was going to be on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Oh, you should tape that. You'll like that because you like these other ones." And if it was her or I just saw the commercial and thought that, I'm not sure. It's a little lost to time. But I remember taping it.
Sorry, Cam's mum.
Yep, sorry.
Doesn't quite remember.
Yeah, can't quite remember. Not that she's listening. But I remember watching the film after taping it and not really liking it.
Okay.
And I think it was just because the reference points were pretty obscure, especially for like an 11 or 12-year-old. And it was just like the difference between a movie made in 1984 versus 1993 for the case of Hot Shots Part 2. The rapid nature of the gags was slower in Top Secret. And this doesn't reflect at all how I feel about the movie now. But in terms of the eyes of an 11-year or 12-year-old in the 90s, seeing Top Secret, it was like, I understand when I watch Hot Shots, I'm seeing a spoof of Top Gun.
Mm-hmm.
I understand with the second one, I'm seeing Rambo.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was seeing in Top Secret.
Mm.
I mean, I'm still trying to figure out what that Ripple Blanc joke is in this film.
It's just about how bad German wine is.
Is
That's
that
literally
it?
There's so many jokes in this movie that just are not referencing anything that stuck around in the consciousness at all.
Yeah, like I thought like maybe Ripple Blanc was like a drink in the 80s that everyone was like, this tastes like really cheap champagne or something like that. It melts. That's why it melted the glass. That's why I thought that. Okay. Maybe I thought too much about it, which is exactly what we do here. Emma, what about you? What was I'm sure when you were doing a Kilmer deep dive, you stumbled upon Top Secret.
It was one of those like, I remember the first time I watched it is a bit of a blur because I watched it like in a stretch, like in a run with many other movies. I think I loved Airplane. I saw Airplane at like a friend's birthday party when I was like 10, and I didn't know you could make movies like that. And then Top Secret, I think, is the only other Zaz movie I've seen. My apologies. I have a problem where I will just rewatch a movie I really like and rather than move on to other movies made by the same people, which is a struggle. But I think I was I've always been so taken about this movie that they seem to be making jokes for the sake of making jokes, and they're making for the sake of making as many jokes as possible. And so what I like about it is that the hit rate is still so high, but they don't all land. And so I think it's more of an effortful movie, almost like an effortful comedy. And I really liked that. I liked watching that movie and thinking they are trying to make me laugh at every moment.
And seem inspired by weird ideas too.
Yes.
That I'm sure we'll dive into favorite moments throughout the movie a bit later, but they will throw a gag in there where you go like, what were they thinking in that moment?
And then you'll realize there's another gag happening at the same time in the same moment, just in the back, multi-dimensional.
And a lot of them require effort. Like there's gags where you go like, that took time and effort to stage, but clearly in that moment, they, in their, mad brains were like, that'd be really funny. Let's do that. And it's like, I remember the spoof movies that came out, because you had like the scary movies, which came out later in the 2000s. And then you had all those ones like Epic Movie and Date Movie and stuff that became what people thought of as spoof movies, but they were really bad. They typically would just have like people recreating a scene from like a popular movie and then a cow would fall on them or something. Like it was just completely random stuff. And it kind of sullied the name of what a spoof movie or like what spoofs could be, where people are like, oh, they're just bad movies. When you go backwards and look at the ones where they were putting in real effort, and I don't know how, say, the new Scary Movie is going to be. The trailer just dropped the other day. Who knows? Like maybe there is a level of effort being put into it that I think was present at least in the earlier ones. But, you look at a movie like Top Secret or Airplane or Naked Gun, and you can just see like, they would be exhausting movies to make.
Oh, yeah. And what I like also is they're spoofing things, but they'll spoof like one shot. You know, like there's a moment where the camera like tilts over and then it hits like a boot and then pans up and you see the boot's empty.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I saw this movie before I saw The Wizard of Oz. So when I saw The Wizard of Oz, which was like last year, I was like, oh my gosh, the shot from Top Secret. But many of the moments in Top Secret that are taken from other movies are like that, where they're like, this shot works. This shot has an internal logic of its own, or this bit or this scene, and it is funny as a standalone, even if you don't know the source material. And I think that's something that sometimes is missed in spoofs.
Yeah, and that they're made by filmmakers who love film.
Yeah.
And really know film well, and also understand how to play with like perspectives and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you look at a lot of the ones that really took up the marketplace, and I think kind of really turned people against the idea of really spoof movies being something that was just a popular thing to drive people going to the movies,
Mm-hmm.
they were kind of making it just because here's what's popular, let's trash it. But it's
It's
not
really just, hey, you recognize this? Me too.
Yeah, exactly. And they aren't like, you look at Airplane, a movie you said you really loved. Like, it was based on a 1950s movie called 0 Hour. Like, that is somewhat obscure. And I know The High and the Mighty as well was another one they looked at, the John Wayne film. And it's like, they were people that knew the history of film and were drawing on targets that they thought made a good framework for a movie, and that they could bring in their own references here or there. But that shows right there, like, a level of film knowledge that I think a lot of other filmmakers who make these think, oh, I can make this cheap and easy and make money.
Mm-hmm. And this is based on a lot of, like, 40s films and Cold War films, right? Like,
yes.
From what I remember and understand.
And obscure ones, too.
Yeah, I was going to say movies that people maybe that are not even accessible anymore, or at least not popular.
I mean, some of them are probably just on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's no rights on them at this point, and we don't even know what they are to a degree.
Yeah.
And, they are based, a lot of them, on espionage and World War II films, but even I, watching Top Secret, it's not like I sit there after watching all these movies for this podcast go, oh, that one. A lot of them I'm really not sure.
I was wondering, actually.
Well, it's probably an interesting time to bring up, and it sort of segues into this conversation. Next week, we are going to be joined by one of the directors and writers of this film, Mr. David Zucker.
Wow.
Very cool.
Very, very cool.
And, he talks about, in the interview, some of the reference points to this film. And I have to admit, I think Cam and I were scratching our head at some of them. We've either not seen it or completely forgotten it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there was a couple that are obvious. I believe Foreign Correspondent was one he mentioned.
That was one of them, yeah.
The Hitchcock film. But, like, there was some where even he was like, I can barely remember now what they were. And, again, it shows that they were people growing up watching. I'm sure, if you're watching movies around that time period, there's the explosion of World War II films and spy films coming out of World War II and during World War II as well. And so it was like you could watch dozens that now are kind of lost to the sand of time.
Yeah.
Well, as for me, I saw this similarly to Cam in sort of that pocket of watching Zaz films. I actually, I don't really want to echo Cam too much, but I was exactly the same. This felt like a lesser film to me. I would often go back to Airplane or the Naked Gun films before I would watch this again. But I have seen it several times throughout my life, and there are moments that stuck with me going back to rewatch it for this. But then you often tend to find this film on like clips on Twitter and stuff. People will say, "Oh, underrated comedy." Yeah, sure, but it is a Zaz comedy, so I'm not quite sure it's underrated.
It's underrated to people who were born after 2000. I guess.
Ah, yes, of course. Our biggest listener base, the Gen Zs. You should see the numbers.
You pull from them for this guest, and then that's it.
Yeah, I think they go the other way, but all right. That's our setup. We've all experienced it at one point in our lives or another. But Cam, can you unravel the secrets?
Yes,
Top secret. You didn't let me finish,
Yeah,
Cam.
can you?
Stop. Listen to my dulcet tones one more time, everyone. Cam, can you unravel the secrets of Top Secret?
Okay, I can go this time, Scott.
Okay.
I'm keeping that in. So this was the brainchild of David Zucker, Jim Abrahams, and Jerry Zucker, who were a Wisconsin-born trio. The Zuckers are obviously brothers, but they were a childhood friend group, and obviously had a certain inspired manic energy that lends itself to what they would do going forward that they really fostered because they were going to school together. And they started out as a sketch comedy troupe called the Kentucky Fried Theater, where they would come up with these crazy ideas and, put on like sketches for people, and just managed to make enough of a name for themselves that they got a break. And they did a little tiny bit of TV work. They worked on the TV series Big John, Little John. They did one episode, but then they ended up writing the cult hit spoof movie, The Kentucky Fried Movie, which was directed by John Landis. It's one of his early hit films, and it was sort of a spoof of channel surfing. The idea of just sitting and watching TV and skipping around and watching different crazy things that could be on TV during like an afternoon.
Which I'll just jump in. That has completely left the zeitgeist now.
It has. That is actually the part that's aged the worst, is the idea of channel surfing.
I was genuinely just a little contemporary information. I had my nieces and nephews over the other day, and they were just on YouTube, which is apparently what young kids look at now.
Yeah.
I mean, I watch YouTube too, but like I wouldn't put kids on YouTube knowing what I know is on YouTube. Do you know what I mean?
What are you watching on YouTube, Scott?
Weirdly, a lot of EAS scenarios, but that's for people who get that, great. I'm not going to explain it. I'm going to leave it there. But so then I have Sky Television, which is like cable, I suppose, to the North Americans listening. And so I said, I don't want you to watch YouTube. Let's put like the kids channel on Nickelodeon or whatever. And I'm skipping through the kids channels just trying to find something to watch. And they're like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, oh, we used to always skip the channels. And I remember like growing up, we would like skip through music channels, all kinds of stuff, or the movie channels. But they just had no idea why I kept sort of cycling through things. They thought it was weird. I didn't just stay and watch something.
I feel like there's also a pressure in my generation to always already know what you want before you get it. And so there's always like, you seek out a video or like whatever, and then your algorithm takes you from there, but you just kind of follow the path. So you're like, it's sort of giving you what you already know you want is kind of what the ideal algorithm for young people. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what algorithmically would lead someone to this. I'm sorry if you found us.
Yeah.
Senior living.
That was how Cam felt when he saw this film for the first time.
So they, after Kentucky Fried Movie, which was quite popular, but more of like a cult comedy. It wasn't like a mainstream hit. They then took the director's chairs and wrote and directed Airplane, which obviously was a huge movie.
Never heard of it.
Right? And followed that with the short-lived TV series Police Squad, which would later spawn The Naked Gun.
Which is great, by the way. If you haven't seen the TV show, go and watch it. It's basically like 6 extra films.
I haven't seen it.
It's just like the films.
Okay, I should watch that. You're right. And they went right from that into Top Secret. And Paramount was very excited about this, having them back, because Airplane had made $83.5 million for a comedy that was relatively cheap. And you think of that in, $1980, that's a lot of money.
$85 million. Surely you can't be serious.
Stop calling me Shirley.
Someone did it. Yay.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I was trying to hold back. I just couldn't. I can't.
Yeah. With that joke, it's just there. Someone has to step into the... Nature hates a vacuum, so you have to fill it with something.
Yes.
And Abraham said they'd always wanted to make a movie about World War II, but because they were big movie buffs, but they felt like Nazi Germany wasn't funny. And so...
so they'd make it not Nazi Germany, but full of Nazis?
Exactly. They kind of like have their cake and eat it too, to a degree. And so like, whereas Airplane was based on, as I said, the movie 0 Hour from 1957, Top Secret would be their first original story. They were not basing it specifically on a film, like not following the template.
And look how it did for them.
Well, yes. And I think maybe they realized they had a bit of a challenge because they brought in another writer, Martin Burke, to collaborate on the movie. He's a Canadian writer, director, and documentarian who got his start on the 1973 TV movie Carnivals, which was an homage to carnivals, where he this was the documentary where he went across and looked at different carnivals across America. He also
Sounds
did
incredibly boring. Look at this carnival.
And another one.
Look at this carnival.
And another one.
And here's a carnival. Look, it's a tent.
Well, okay, it depends. If he's like
Cam is
diving
coming
into
in swinging for carnival, the documentary.
I'm going to defend carnivals for a second. If he's diving into the world of
Wait,
like...
hang on. Keep going. I'm just going to do the music.
If he's diving into the world of like the Nightmare Alley aspects of like, geeks and what have you, then that might be actually pretty interesting.
Well, isn't there that really old, I say really old film, that makes me sound like I'm a Gen Z kind of person. I'm a millennial here. Like Freaks, I think it was like a silent film.
Yeah, it's not silent, but it's from 1932, I think. Todd Browning. Yeah.
Oh, so it's just at the beginning of sound. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one gets spoken about quite a lot. It's actually having quite a serious take on it, which I should check out.
That's a very good movie. So like if it's that kind of thing, maybe it is interesting. Or if it's just about like merry-go-rounds, it's probably pretty boring.
I mean, if nothing else, it must be very like visually and sonically really an interesting experience.
I love that you came in positively there, Emma. Thank you.
That's right.
I really like there's this like carnival art exhibit revival called Luna Luna that is traveling around America right now that I love. And I'm like, if you could find a narrative, it's a really great setting aesthetically for a film.
Yeah. So there you go, Scott. Carnivals, 2 against 1.
Generations apart, these two there, folks, and they both love carnivals. So, hey, maybe I'm the one that's on the outside. I'm looking in.
I don't know if I've ever been to one.
Oh,
it's not really a city thing.
It isn't, and I live in a city too, so we don't tend to get them very often. But I remember going to one as a child and seeing a couple of animals and just feeling bad for the animals, and so I just don't like it. In my head, I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, we have like the like P&E here, which is like our big expo, which I guess counts as a carnival. I guess.
I just gotta say, it is bizarre, and it's very much us, and sort of on topic for Top Secret, that instead of taking a diversion down the route you think you would by talking about like, airplane for 5 minutes, like airplane would be the thing we should be talking about, but we had like 30 seconds on that film, and then we just skipped to a 10-minute discussion about Carnival the documentary.
Anyways, Martin Burke followed up Carnivals with a 1976 horror movie called The Clown Murders. And then he also did the 1978 Peter O'Toole Donald Pleasance military thriller Power Play, which I feel like somewhat plays into maybe why they bring him in for this. And this movie was Martin Burke's follow-up to the 1981 Lee Majors race car adventure, The Last Chase, as well as the TV documentary The KGB Connections, which was about the KGB and its connection and dealings with the Soviet Union.
Wow. Cam's ability to state the obvious there was pretty good if you just play that back. It's called KGB The Connections, and it's about KGB and their connections. Thank you, Cam. Great research. You just can't do better than that. This is what we wait for in the episode.
The sad part is the word connection was not used twice in my notes. I improv that one on the spot.
That was off the dome?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it shouldn't have been. That's the problem.
Yeah. So Martin Burke isn't really that well known, though, I feel like, overall. His best known credits are probably the TV movie from 1999, Pirates of Silicon Valley, which had Anthony Michael Hall as Bill Gates and Noah Wyle as Steve Jobs. I remember that making a little bit of a splash when it came out. And also the 2002 Sylvester Stallone comedy Avenging Angelo, which isn't great. But they clearly were bringing him in for more of like, I think like probably information and help in terms of creating like the Soviet Union Cold War like atmosphere and world. I guess.
Which is notably accurate in this film.
Yeah.
It takes me right back.
I mean, we do ask David Zucker about working with Martin Burke in the interview. So he'll lay that out better, which isn't hard. And so they chose the Cold War era because they wanted to have a setting where they could parody authoritarian government while avoiding the awkwardness, obviously, with dealing with things like World War II and the Nazis and Holocaust and what have you.
I can't make a joke when the end of your sentence is Holocaust, so I guess I'll just go, thank you for that information, Cam. On to the next point, please.
I do find it interesting, though, that like most of the German in it is Yiddish, and they call it Goebbels Plotzen, and like there's Nazi imagery invoked everywhere. Like it
yeah.
There's
feels...
like
a Hitler. There's a Hitler clock.
It's interesting that what they are saying or what was and wasn't actually included.
Yeah.
And how much verisimilitude, or not verisimilitude, like what actual truth to life they were even attempting. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, it sometimes feels a little bit like what Spielberg was doing with Raiders of the Lost Ark, where it's like there's a lot of Nazi representation in that film, and him thumbing his nose at them and constantly trying to make them look silly. And that seems to be very much the case with what the Zuckers and Abraham are doing here. The idea of showing them and showing how ridiculous they are, but obviously avoiding kind of the gravity that comes with setting it during their reign of power in World War II.
And it also helps they're like cast almost entirely British actors as the Nazis, which is kind of a funny little in-joke there as well if you look at the cast list. Yeah,
and it's like then cartoon accents and goose stepping and play it up like cartoons.
Yeah.
This was the film debut of Val Kilmer. He'd been working in theater prior to this, showed up for the audition in an Elvis outfit and a James Dean hairdo, and they were very impressed. And he described working with Zaz as directors. He said it was like the Marx Brothers directing Traffic.
I get that. I get that impression from the interview.
Yeah, I do too, actually.
That's just a third of them. Imagine all three of them assembled. Chaos.
Yeah.
It was a struggle for him because he came right out of Juilliard to do. He went Juilliard, then he did a play that he wrote himself about a West German, I guess, anarcho-terrorist. And then it was called How It All Began, and then did Slab Boys, which is, I guess, like a Broadway play, and then came to do this and was like, okay, and who's my character? What do I do? And they were like, you're blonde. And that was basically all he had. And I'm sure he was a terror about it.
Yeah.
I can imagine Val wanted, the thespians angle.
I mean, he's an actor. He wanted to act, and he was sort of, more of a physical prop in this movie.
To get through a scene, if he's asking them, like, what's my motivation, and, like, what does my character want in this scene or something, I feel like it was probably a lot of, he wants to cross the room. It would be like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, this movie had a budget of $8.5 million. Domestically, it did 20.5.
They said they came in under at 7. In the director's commentary, at least, they're like they came in $1 million under.
Yeah. So, like, this movie was profitable, but it was considered a bomb because Airplane had made so much money. Like, this was like a over $60 million drop between films.
Wasn't your first total the 80 million? Was that domestic, as you like to say over there?
Well, these movies didn't. There's no tracking on international numbers for these movies,
right?
So they may not have even gotten international theatrical releases in those days because often comedies didn't.
Oh, I'm sure they did in the UK.
Yeah,
it's the 80s, not the Stone Age.
Well, you look into like international releases on comedies, even in the 80s, it's pretty rough.
All right, 40% of the people listening to the show are in the UK. Let us know. Mail@spyhards.com. Were you there when Top Secret came out?
Yeah, I'd love to know actually as well, because those numbers don't exist. So it was considered a bomb compared to Airplane. It was also released the same year as Airplane 2, which the Zucker team had nothing to do with. And Airplane 2 did 27.2, so it actually beat Top Secret.
That's tough. I'm an Airplane 2 defender. I think it's a fine comedy, but it isn't Airplane.
Yeah, it's okay. Like I laughed, watching Airplane 2, but it's nowhere near as inspired as the first.
No, it's a lot of the first one repeated.
There's some great William Shatner stuff in it.
There's some great William Shatner stuff in there. The guy can act. People think he's this like hack fraud. I'm Captain Kirk. None of that. That's like a SNL creation. Anyway, I won't get. There you go, folks. There's our obligatory Star Trek reference. Congratulations, it was there.
That's right. And the movie landed number 52 at the worldwide box office for the year between Weekend Pass, which was a sailor sex comedy, and Hot Dog the Movie, which was a skiing sex comedy.
A lot of sex comedies happening in the 80s.
Oh, big time, especially this kind of year.
The sailor sex comedy sounds a bit risque.
Well, they're on shore leave, Scott.
Oh, it wasn't like just men alone at sea and what happens below decks.
That's Top Gun.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, it's not gay if it's underway.
They were on the highway to the danger zone.
The top 3 for the year. Number 1 was Beverly Hills Cop. Number 2 was Ghostbusters. And number 3 was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
I mean, you can't beat that, can you?
Yeah.
And I think like the top 5, it's like Gremlins and Karate Kid are also in that top 5. So it's a pretty great year. Val Kilmer would do Real Genius the following year. And then Top Gun 2 years later and become an icon and movie star, and that would start a whole journey.
So was that the film, Top Gun, not this, the film that broke Val Kilmer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, broke him like into the industry or mentally?
Well, I don't mean mentally. I don't know if he had a mental break. But,
no, he was fine.
Oh,
I was
great.
like, I said yes very enthusiastically, and then I worried for a second that I had answered the wrong question.
He fell to pieces.
Yeah, I was like, no, he was actually okay.
No, I suppose like, is that the film that made him a household name? I always assumed it was something like this.
No, so I think it's interesting because his first 2 roles were leads, but neither movie did very well at the time. I think they've both gone on to be somewhat cult classics. I've been able to see them both in theaters since.
Right.
And I wasn't alive when either came out. But yeah, Top Gun was really, really the role that like rocketed him. And he didn't want to do it. He was anti-war. Real Genius is a really good anti-military movie. But yeah, he was contractually obligated, and Tony Scott like begged him to do it. So it also, interestingly, because that's what, shot him into success, he really stopped doing comedies after that. Like he wasn't doing many comedies at all.
I guess the only other thing I've seen him doing comedy was
MacGruber's what?
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
Yeah, MacGruber and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Yeah, so that was 2005 and 2010. But basically between 1985 and 2005, he didn't really do a comedy. He's done slightly more comedic roles, but not really a comedy. Yeah.
I trust me, I'm not taking you to task. I believe you wholeheartedly. Your Val Kilmer stuff. I just found it interesting that he had not necessarily sour grapes from this, but like it wasn't inspired to come back to comedy.
Well, he was saying no one will hire you for a comedy, so he'd actually been wanting to, and then this is sort of how Hollywood works, I guess. But because his breakout role was a drama, people were like, okay, so you are the cocky leading man drama, and this is what you do. Which I find it's sort of there's a Tom Hardy parallel where before like really Bronson, he was typecast as a twink. Like he would be cast to play a young gay man, and then he did Bronson, and after that all his roles were really, not that I think he in particular wanted to go back to his previous typecast, but it is interesting. Like you really get hired based on your last big job.
I mean, I don't think the William Shatner one was a good enough Star Trek reference. So just to bring Tom Hardy into the conversation.
Star Trek Nemesis reference?
Oh my God.
God.
He is clearly not playing around with that role. Like he is not enjoying it. He is not present in those scenes. It's a really rough sit, that film, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. That was difficult for him. Yeah. He's spoken about personally how hard that whole experience was.
I think for like Val Kilmer too, the problem was he did The Doors a few years after Top Gun, which was a big movie for him and kind of painted him as like tortured actor. And suddenly it was like a lot of these movies had to have heavy gravitas, where like that's the things that are being offered to him. And he does kind of get a little pulpier. He signs up to do Batman, the most tortured of characters.
Yeah.
But that movie's kind of like a silly comic book.
Ended up campy.
So then he's doing like The Saint and Ghost in the Darkness.
I mean, it's my favorite Batman film, but whatever.
Good Lord, that's crazy.
I love Batman Forever. I'm with you. I have a staff, like a crew jacket, and sometimes people on the street will like derisively say, "Oh, and were you in the crew?" And I have to be like, "No, I wasn't born yet."
I bought it on eBay for $300.
I bought it on eBay. It's a men's small.
I've looked at getting crew jackets before for a lot of films I really like, but I always see them on eBay for like in XL.
Yeah.
Like I've had some bad days trust me. But like, I've never been in Excel.
No, you really have to hunt, and you have to keep tabs on it because they get snapped up.
Yeah. Okay. Cam, have you ever tried to buy a crew jacket?
No, I never have. I definitely have, going down eBay deep dives, more for like merchandise to do with certain movies.
Yeah.
They popped up, but they've never been something I've been drawn to because the price tag was always like,
Mm-hmm.
do I want to pay like $500 US for like a Batman Returns crew jacket? Not really.
Yeah.
I would.
I will say I snapped mine up for under 300. So it was a real like
well done.
I was on the hunt, and I had to get tips from people to haggle because as just by nature, I'm not a particularly assertive like haggler or anything. I almost was like, let me offer a little more just to sweeten the deal, and my partner at the time was like, that's not how eBay works. Do not be just don't pay more than the auction price off the bat.
I'll give you more than you asked for. Yeah, that's a good offer. I'll take that. Thanks. Cam, do you have any more to add? Otherwise, I'll spin us into the review.
Just that this is the penultimate film for sort of the classic Zaz group in many ways, because...
What about Naked Gun?
Well, hold on, Scott. So, they would reteam and all direct the trio would direct the movie Ruthless People in 1986, which David talks about in the interview for sure.
Mm-hmm.
They would all write The Naked Gun, but David Zucker would take over as sole director for that film. And he would also direct the Naked Gun 33 1/3 and Naked Gun 2.5 himself solo. The Zaz team would not come back to write 2.5 and 33 1/3. They would just be producers. He would bring in Pat Proft to co-write those, and that being David would just write those with Pat Proft. And then they would kind of split off, and David Zucker, as I said, would do Naked Gun 33 1/3. He would also do Basketball and Scary Movies 3 and 4.
Basketball's good.
I liked Scary Movie 3. I have memories that one was actually pretty good.
4 had like a lot to do with signs.
I think so, yeah.
Correctly.
Maybe? I don't know.
I think so.
Jerry Zucker would go on and direct Ghost, which would be a massive movie, Best Picture nominee. Whoopi Goldberg would get Best Supporting Actress that year for that movie. Huge hit. He would also direct First Night with Richard Gere and Sean Connery, and also Rat Race, the comedy, which was kind of a callback to It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World.
I like that film. Yeah. I like that film. It's Rowan Atkinson.
Yeah.
It's a race. It's a race.
He would also produce movies like My Best Friend's Wedding and the spy biopic Fair Game. And Jim Abrahams would go on and direct the 1990 Winona Ryder comedy, Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael. And he would oversee the Hot Shots films and Mafia. He would co-write those and direct. And he would also work with David Zucker, co-writing Scary Movie 4. And he has passed away since. He passed away in 2024 from complications with leukemia, which he'd had for 20 years. So you can see how like Top Secret is the whole team writing together, directing together, but that starts to kind of fall away after this movie.
I think we're about to maybe get into some of the reasons why.
Okay, there we go, Scott.
Well, like I said at the start, we've got your emails, we've got your texts, we've got your semaphore. We know you want Top Secret. So let's do it. Let's talk about Top Secret. And why not defer to the expert in the room? No, I'm not talking about Cam because he was there when this film came out, unlike the two of us. Emma, why don't you take it away? First up, what do you think of Top Secret in the year 2026?
Honestly, I think it's aged better than it released, if that makes sense. Because obviously it has, I think there are some difficulties with how much plot and how cohesive it is as like one narrative or one story. But we don't really have like a dearth of movies with a clear plot anymore. We do have just so few movies that are willing to take have such comedic trust in the audience to actually buy what you're selling. So there's not really any hand-holding. So what I really love in 2026, watching Top Secret is just the sheer amount of humor that it trusts the audience to pick up on and doesn't give you too much time to absorb before moving on to something else. It's like it accepts itself as like, this is going to be funny, and you are going to understand that it's funny. You have to understand how it's funny, and if you have to watch it again, then you do. And I think it really, really rewards a second and a third viewing.
I will jump in with my thoughts in a second, but I want to just latch on to something you said, because it is very much true, and it's something I have noticed in films more recently, is there's not a lot of like trust in the product. There is a nervousness to committing to a genre or a theme. You know, I'm not even going to mention our beloved Trek, but I'll talk about science fiction. A lot of science fiction now likes to undercut itself by saying like, you know, well, that just happened, and all that sort of marvelification of dialogue. And even the recent Naked Gun film, despite me and Cam seeing it together in person and actually laughing quite a few times throughout, it didn't feel as confident as it should have.
No.
And it felt like it was still leaning on the past a little bit, whereas it probably shouldn't have done that. Whereas this is take it or leave it. There are sight gags that you will miss the first time and perhaps the third or fourth time and eventually see. I mean, I don't think I picked up until a recent viewing of the scene in the sort of ballroom, like diner scene, whatever it was. Not the ballroom. Where they're having the evening meal where they do the dance.
Like the banquet, right?
Yeah, the banquet. Thank you. I should know a word like banquet. It's very British. And like when he walks in, they say, "Oh, you have to wear a tie and jacket." And in the background of the next shot, where Jeremy Kemp is being talked to, he's having like a tailor measure him up. Like I've never noticed that until recently.
And it's not foregrounded at all.
No.
You really you can't see it, or not can't, but you really don't notice it until somebody goes, "Oh my God, you see him through the window in the background of the shot." There's also like he jumps on a chandelier in it, and in the Tutti Frutti scene in this, and the other chandelier goes up like it's cantilevered. That sort of
I've
tiny
never seen
detail.
That.
Yeah,
I didn't notice that.
That was a mechanical feat that they pulled off. For what reason? Because they thought it might be a little funny. And I really respect that.
I was like embarrassed with myself that I somehow missed, because I watched this movie a couple weeks ago for the interview with David Zucker, and the part where it's like the dialogue scene between him and the female lead, and there's the statue in the background of the giant pigeon.
Yeah.
And suddenly you see the guys being lowered onto the pigeon and like peeing on the pigeon and then being pulled back up. And somehow I did not notice that on the revisit like a few weeks ago. I was too focused on what the dialogue was and what like was being conveyed between the two actors. And when I was sitting there last night, I was like, how the hell did I miss this? Like, what was going on that I wasn't like, wait a second, what the hell's going on? What is this madness going on in the background?
I always think of, I know it's not a Zaz comedy, but Hot Shots, I think it's part 2. It's the Top Gun one, so it's the first one. And Charlie Sheen goes into an office to have a meeting, and in the background you can see the top of a door. There's like a guy changing a light bulb, but it's that sort of like weird glass that you can't quite see through. It's like opaque glass,
like frosted.
And so you see him, like frosted glass. Thank you. And like he keeps getting electrocuted. Worse and worse things are happening to him in the background of the scene as it cuts away to someone else and cuts away back to Charlie Sheen, sort of looking at him, and you see the door. And so I've learned that language as a kid. And so being able to apply that to this and look past the initial foreground is a really key element to watching this film. And I don't want to get into an academic discussion about Top Secret, but from a filmmaking point of view, it's fantastic.
Yeah. And there are a lot of like, not cheats in it, but I don't know how to phrase this, but you can tell that they knew exactly how it was going to be photographed. So they could set up a shot without having to think about what might be tinkered with later. They were like, we are going to get this shot. And partially that's obviously just the time period, but it also is like, as much as I think the directors kind of talk about this movie like that they didn't really know where they were going with it, but it really has a confidence in its craft that is so refreshing to see.
I think for me, it's an interesting tale of two cities in a sense. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. I love bits of this film, almost every bit of this film. But the problem is this film is bits. There is not a cohesion amongst it. And so when you look at it as a piece, I mean, the plot is bafflingly complex and yet completely transparent.
Yeah.
There's no reason for it to be as mind-boggling as it is at times.
Well,
and then it is a bit much.
But isn't that true to a lot of the Cold War films that we tackle from this time period?
Yeah, okay. All right. I'll take that note. That's a fair note to make. But I do feel like, and this is something, Cam, you use this line a lot, and I'm sure it was probably in your notes, so I'm sorry if I'm taking it from you. But comedies a lot of the time are like a clothesline for gags.
Yeah.
This feels like it is a sketch show with a loose narrative thread tying it together, which if you're watching it passively is absolutely fine. If you're second screening Top Secret, you'll probably get quite a bit out of it because you're not focusing. You might not notice the background stuff, but you'll probably laugh at a few scenes. But if you're intently studying this film to try and have a critical analysis about it, it does tend to fall to pieces.
Yeah. I've found, honestly, and this may be sacrilegious and very Gen Z of me, but a way that I really like to watch this movie is by showing it to people online in like a Discord stream where we can type what our thoughts about it as we go. And like this is a movie that is really, it's fun to discuss as you go, because then also when other people notice a bit that you didn't, like, then you get like a secondary value out of the kind of communal nature of it, which doesn't really make it necessarily good for a theatrical viewing when what you're getting is like talking to people about the movie during the movie.
And then conversely, I would argue the best way to watch this film is on the biggest screen possible.
Oh, yeah.
Because you will see more things that have happened. Like, I can't imagine watching this, I'm sorry, on an airplane.
No, I mean, you won't see it all.
No, or on your phone. Like, I'm sure there's some ways to enjoy it, but I don't think it is in a small screen.
It was a great theatrical experience, too. Like, I'm biased, but I really
I've seen it on the big screen, too. Yeah. It's great.
On the big screen.
Yeah. But yeah, I always have a good time going back to Top Secret. I just found coming at it from the sort of SpyHards lens made it a bit of a tougher sit. So maybe I'll go back to taking those SpyHard lenses off next time. They're big like George Smiley spectacles, like the big Michael Caine ones.
They make your eyes look like Peter Cushing's one eye.
His one big eye.
This movie.
Yeah, exactly. Cam, what about you? Why don't you finish us off?
So I feel like my view of this movie has really changed on these revisits. As I said early on, it didn't really grab me. I was more into, the Hot Shots and Naked Gun and watching Airplane, because I saw Airplane a little bit later in life, but like that one I thought was incredible. And I think this movie holds up incredibly well. And there's something about the comedy in it. And I know that, like, I think it was David Zucker said that he thought maybe the reason it just didn't click, it was kind of a a dud back in the day, was that it just didn't have a focus. It was kind of all over the place. It was pulling targets all over. It's like, yes, we've got rock and roll, we've got surf movies, we've got all this stuff that is kind of all in a blender. But I wonder how, in a sense, that has aged incredibly well.
Yeah.
Because there is like a randomness to the gags. Yes, it's like, it's sort of the framework is a World War II, Cold War sort of espionage energy, but the sense that they are working in all of these various gags they can come up with, it's like, it feels almost like going back to the channel flipping concept they had with Kentucky Fried Movie. And to me, that's where the fun is. It feels like it constantly keeps me off balance, so I can sit there and go, I'm really liking these references, or just the energy that I recognize from watching older World War II films. But at the same time, like, one of my favorite gags in the whole movie is when they're on a railing looking down and there's the cars with like gerbils running around.
Yeah.
Which is very audacious.
Which is taken from the set of Superman, 1972,
That's right.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It's from the Christopher Reeve first Superman movie, because they were shooting at Pinewood and found that in the storage.
Yeah.
But the fact that they'll throw that in, that doesn't belong in a World War II movie. And it just feels like they came up with an inspired idea. But it's not just like kind of that Family Guy, let's just grab something really random. They're putting in the work, and they're making it feel like something that, like, you kind of have to like lock into their inspired flights of fancy.
Yeah.
And I think when you do that, this movie is incredible. It's not, and I do ask this of David Zucker in the interview, because I said, like, this is 1984. There is not this explosion of Bond spoof movies. We don't have Spy Hard. We don't have Austin Powers. We don't have any Johnny English. Why didn't you just, at the time, frame it towards like a Bond concept which audiences were much more locked in on. And he's just like, well, that wasn't kind of what was interesting to us.
Yeah.
And he goes at more length to talk about that, but their touch points were more esoteric. And I think that actually benefits the movie well, because I think if this had been, as I had pitched like a James Bond spoof, people would look at it and go, well, you know what? It's not as funny as Austin Powers, or it's not as funny as whatever. If they love Johnny English, like it feels like it would have more competition. Whereas this movie is this very unique kind of comedy gem.
There's nothing else like it.
No, and that's what I really love about it is you are not going to sit down at many comedies that are spoofing kind of like dad entertainment and also like Frankie and Annette surf movies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I said in the previous episode of the show, I don't know if this was recorded out of sequence, so maybe I'll tell this anecdote later, but someone called the James Bond movies Unk movies online recently. And that took me a little bit of time to figure out what Unk meant, because apparently I am one. I am an uncle, but you know what I mean? Unks are basically the older dudes. That's how I've basically taken... I have a Gen Z in the room, I should ask. Is that correct, Emma?
Yeah, I would say so.
Right. And so, yeah, this is exactly talking to the sort of film language I'm used to with spy movies. And I think that probably helps my watching it. But I also just want to jump in before maybe we get to likes and dive deeper into the reasons behind it. I felt like my thoughts came across very pessimistically about this film. I think this film was fucking funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like swearing, so I use it when it means something. It is hilarious. And there are scenes that I will repeatedly laugh at every single time I watch this film. And that is a feat that I don't think any comedy that we've covered on this show so far has been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you think about it, Scott, in terms of the history of this show, we've tackled many spy comedies and bemoaned how few spy comedies actually work. Even at you could say, okay, maybe this movie isn't the world's greatest send-up of specific spy films, but at a laugh ratio element, it's very high. And
unbelievable.
And when I look at the movies we've tackled on this show, the only one that I recall making me laugh a significant amount, and you're going to cringe when I say this, was The In-Laws. But outside of that, there's not much.
Yeah, you're right. I did cringe at that. Not list approved film. Yuck. Yuck, yuck, yuck. And also, just for reference, if you're tuning in for the first time or you're just catching up or whatever, we haven't tackled Austin Powers yet. We haven't tackled Johnny English. So we haven't really tackled what people might say are some of the best spy comedies of all time. This is one of the ones people will often throw up in that discussion. And this is our first time talking about it. So there's every chance this could do well when it comes to the knock list. But let's celebrate before we commiserate. Likes, what did we like about Top Secret? Emma, the guest, always goes first. What's your favorite thing about Top Secret?
I do have to say Val Kilmer's performance.
You do.
Mean, it really drew me to the film. I mean, I guess equal parts. I loved Airplane, but also I think that without him being such a incredibly devoted part of this movie, it wouldn't sell the way it does. It's interesting hearing you guys talk about it as a spy movie and having been invited on the show, which is of course a spy podcast, but I hadn't really thought about it as a spy movie too much before this. Because I don't know, I guess I just think of it more of a pure comedy, which it is a spoof movie, so of course, but I think it works so well because the actual comedic beats are really, really, really well executed, and the comedic performance is excellent. Because him, it's a hard character to actually pull off, the kind of dumb straight man. And it's a physically demanding role as well, and he sings and he, all that. So yeah, I find that to be a real high point of the film and a real reason why the film actually works. Also because he's kind of a visual unknown, so there's no baggage there, right? He's breaking onto the scene. You can tell he's kind of desperate to make this work and to be the best performer that you could imagine in this movie, and that energy is really, really well suited, I think.
Well, the musical numbers, because I think
fantastic.
That is a key part of it. He's playing a rock and roll star, and they don't have him perform one number. it's like they have him perform like 4 or something like that.
It's 5 or 6, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you have like the stage show where he does 2, which is one is like kind of like the more upbeat song, and then one is like the romantic ballad. And the way that like they're like, no, he's not in on the joke, which is a classic Zaz formula thing where the lead, Leslie Nielsen's like the famous one to always acknowledge, but like they can't be in on the joke. So he's being very sincere and earnest in performing these numbers to the best of his ability. The big banquet number as well, like incredible stuff. I think that's the Tutti Frutti one.
Yes.
The ambition to those musical numbers, I see so many musicals of the last 20-something years where the editing is just shot to crap. You know what I mean? Like it's
you
just
tell they weren't hitting those marks.
Exactly. It's like, okay, quick, cut to feet, or keep the camera moving because we don't want to focus too much on the movements. Whereas, you go back to, I love Gene Kelly musicals and, the classic musicals of that time period. And it's like, they're just like, no, hold back and watch what people can do when they're all choreographed. And it's like, they are very confident in these music numbers to just hold back and let Val Kilmer do his thing.
Yeah.
And yes, it's silly. Yes, you're laughing a lot of the time, but like Val Kilmer is really committed and is making sure that this works just in a performance by performance basis.
He even rehearsed it like to an extent that made the directors uncomfortable. Like they were like, you are putting so much more time into perfecting these than we had expected or even asked for. And to every aspect of the character. Val always talks about this, he brings this story up all the time that he spent like months learning to play guitar so that he could play guitar perfectly, and then he showed up on set and the directors were like, actually, scratch that, it looks funnier if you actually clearly are not really playing the guitar. And he brings this up constantly, every single time, and he's like, they waited till my fingers bled. And I always wonder, because he never brings up if anyone asked him to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not certain that anybody did. But he was so dedicated to treating this like a serious dramatic role. And he was a big fan of the Kentucky Fried Theater because he lived in the area. But yeah, it's almost I don't know, I find it kind of funny thinking about how behind the scenes of the movie, it's almost the same dynamic.
Well, on the other side of the coin, he's also playing an Elvis type. Like this is partly an Elvis movie. That's why you do get the 4 numbers, because if you watch an Elvis movie or a Beatles movie or anything of that sort, you will just have music numbers shoved in for sometimes very odd reasons. At least they make it feel like it's supposed to be there for the most part in this film.
Yeah, everything except, I guess, like Straighten the Rug. It gets a
little
shaky.
The Rug, I was going to say. Yeah, you're like, should you be doing all of this? I don't know. Why are there so many rugs in this diner? There's a lot of questions.
In this Der Pizza Hut.
yeah. But like he is also hilarious. Like there is like the commitment to the bit you can absolutely see in the earnestness, but then he is funny in the exact moments he needs to be, and it's like he has almost spoken to Leslie Nielsen and got notes from him on how to deliver this kind of performance, because it feels very dialed in, and it's shocking when you realize this is his first big film.
Yeah, and he was probably 23 while they were shooting this.
Like, I was still, like, working in sales at 23.
Yeah.
I had hair at 23. Like, that was so long ago.
Wow, that must have been a very long time ago.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you very much. And she, Emma,
I had to get a Gen Z-ism in.
Yeah, Emma's just left the show, everyone. That was nice. Yeah. Cam, do you ever like?
I do. I was going to quickly say, like, the thing about Val Kilmer, too, is he's very young. This is his first big movie, and he knows that this is from the filmmakers of Airplane.
Yeah.
So he knows that that's a massive movie. This could be huge as well, and should be huge. And so I'm trying to imagine like the level of anxieties as well.
Oh yeah.
Because it seems like they're pretty a madcap trio in terms of writing and directing. And as a very serious actor, what is he sort of being given information-wise about a character?
Yeah.
You are going to be the star. You're not going to be able to hide. You're not in an ensemble. It's not like a lot of actors who are doing like 1980s sex comedies where it's like a group of 4 of them, you know, doing like a Porky's film or a ripoff of Porky's or that kind of thing. That has to be somewhat anxiety-inducing. So when I hear about him overperforming or over-practicing for the musical numbers, it kind of makes sense of like hedging your bets of like, I could be hung out to dry in this, so I need to show that I'm like at least incredibly proficient at, my craft on screen.
And it was in England, so he was not only was it his first film role, but he was overseas and dating Cher. I don't think that has anything to do with anything, but he had a lot going on in his life.
He was dating Cher?
He was dating Cher at this time. And he was also, while he was in England, he went and saw Joanne Whalley, who later became his wife, perform at, just like in a play at a theater. And he like fell in love with her and started writing poems about her at this time while still dating Cher.
How silly can
If you look at Cher's first trip to the Oscars, or like when she won her Oscar, I think she...
that's for Moonstruck.
Yes.
And that would have been, the 1987 Oscars.
Yes. If you look at who's sitting with her at the table, it is Val Kilmer. Very young, feathery hair. Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. I'll have to watch that acceptance speech.
They were on again, off again. Yeah, for a very long time and still in great terms, or were on great terms for the rest of Val's life.
Did she thank him in her speech?
I don't think so. Maybe?
Like you wouldn't, right?
No.
Like yeah, come on. It's there, this is not a life of marriage here where they're like, I have to thank my significant other for carrying me through this journurny.
This is her boy toy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
She went from Tom Cruise to Val Kilmer. Before Top Gun.
Who was after Val Kilmer? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know.
Where do you go after Val Kilmer?
Who's to say? Well,
it's all downhill.
Who's to say?
I also don't think she waited until she was done dating Val Kilmer. Like, I think they were both on to other people. Well, yeah.
Salacious rumors here, Emma. You can't be doing this sort of stuff on the show. How dare you?
I'm bringing TMZ to the people. It's like, how often do I get to gossip about Val Kilmer and Cher? Very, very seldom.
You found yourself in a position to do it, so congrats.
Thank you.
You manifested it.
I appreciate it.
Well, my is the sheer ambition of the direction. And it's, as I was saying earlier, like more modern spoof movies, a lot of them are just cheap and quick, and they just crank them out fast. Whereas here, there's so many scenes. Probably a lot of the big comedy highlights. The cow sequence of them dressing up as the cow and directing a cow into some of the biggest laughs in the movie. That's not easy to do. Nowadays, that cow CG. They are like, we're just... Or they do a intentionally bad animatronic, because that's more the comedy. Whereas here, it's like, no, we have a real cow in boots, and we need to make this cow believable as a character in the film, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
The underwater fight, which is one of the most incredible things I've seen in this type of comedy, because it's not just like, a quick moment. It's like they're really going the extra mile to include like the saloon vibe, the like...
It's like nuts that they would even do it in the first place. Like the film didn't need it.
No.
They're just like, oh, we could do this? Okay.
We can, so we will.
Yeah.
It feels like guys, these are childhood friends. And I'm trying to think of like me and my friends. If you had given us the amount of money...
I've met your friends.
Well, if you'd given us like the amount of money needed to conceive these sorts of gags, you just think of like how wild... my movie would be nowhere near as good as anything these guys made, but like you would be going for similar types of things, these crazy ideas that you're like, we can pay someone to do that? Let's try to do that. And so it's just littered with those types of moments. And I'm honestly in awe of a lot of it. And it's very rare I watch any spy comedy on this show, and I'm awed by the direction and like the ambition of the set pieces.
You talk about what you and your friends would get up to. I had no budget, but I made 2 spoof TV shows as a teenager. They don't exist online, fortunately, because I don't think I'd ever live down the cringe.
Right.
That's the early 2000s for you, baby.
Yeah.
All on VHS.
I have a couple of those too. I did a Kung Fu movie, which I'm sure has aged beautifully. I did a Die Hard knockoff, and we did another one that was like a murder mystery.
These days, if we had been doing that, we would have done it on our iPhones, and we'd probably be filmmakers by now.
Yeah, well, or we would put them on YouTube and be humiliated. Like, the thing is, we shot that stuff on home videos, and you were like, yep, like, that's what we did back then, and a lot of that stuff just sits there now.
I didn't expect this conversation going into it would be like a generational thing. I like there to be a generational edge to this discussion. It's interesting how we've ended up here.
Yes. I find it really interesting because I show this movie to people of all ages, and it is just, I always really, really enjoy how conversations end up different based on like who I'm showing it to.
Well, from your experience of showing this film to people, which it sounds like you've done to quite a few people.
I forced my family, like when I go visit my extended family, I'd be like, you know, it'd be really fun. And it's actually not boring at all. So it's actually it's not a boring one because I used to make them watch boring movies when I'd visit. So I'm like, this one's actually really fun. And so I've gotten, I'd say, yeah, like 20, 30 different people.
What's the sort of general consensus on the film?
I think they're all surprised. Okay, this is terrible. You're going to hate this. They're all surprised that a movie that was quote unquote as old as it is still as interesting and fun and fast paced. And then I, of course, I'm like, you know, it's really not that old. Notably, many movies from the 80s are very fun. But I do think that what is interesting is that there is this sort of universal feeling that the humor and the pace and the tone of it have aged so much better than they would have expected. So I think honestly, a lot of the times it's just like surprised that it's still fun and still watchable. And then also just like, okay, why isn't this more popular at least with people in our generation? Which is why I've been on a Twitter crusade to, like, you know, spread clips of it and go, hey, does anyone else remember this scene from Top Secret 1984?
Oh, you're the one that's been doing it that I mentioned earlier. It makes sense. It all connects.
I do. Every time there's an opportunity, like I see Val Kilmer in the news, and it was, you know, happening more and more around the Top Gun 2 era.
The Maverick stuff,
yeah. Every time Val Kilmer entered the news cycle in any way, I would be there, like, posting clips of various movies he'd done, kind of trying to phrase them so they could get picked up by the algorithm, because I am trying to spread the gospel of just, at least, not necessarily just this movie or just Val Kilmer, but I think it is really important that people my age who maybe generally find movie recommendations through seeing clips or whatever, are exposed to things that are silly and older, you know, that are not just whatever is acclaimed critically from any generation, which I do think is really important, but also to remember that, like, literally everyone had fun. Everyone had fun, and everyone, you know, made things that were stupid and made things that were ambitious, and that other, you know, that a different type of filmmaking is possible too. Like, I do think it expands the breadth of what people are used to when they watch this movie, and they're not used to movies made before I was born.
Not everything has to be like a 2 billion, 3 billion earner.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be an event movie, you know? No. Sometimes you make a movie because you think it would be really cool to do this thing, that thing, and the other.
Yeah.
And I will defend, you know, you're saying that they're surprised a comedy this old still entertains. And I think, you know, as the oldest person in the room, I will actually say, like, comedy doesn't always age well.
Yeah.
And you can watch movies that were huge hit comedies of the 80s or 90s even, and people will go, okay, like, it's a fun concept, but I didn't laugh that much.
Yeah.
Because the rhythm of the jokes is just slower than what comedies in the 2000s, like the Apatow movies, are like, try to have a joke frequently, like every few seconds, you know, basically every 30 seconds, try to make the audience laugh. And so suddenly they go back to something that's, you know, a lot of the comedies of the 80s, for example, are these kind of high concept ideas. It's like, what happens if you put this kind of funny comedian in a situation that's a little outlandish? That's the joke. Yeah. And a lot of the movies played kind of straight, and people go, oh, well, that's not that funny.
Yeah.
To me, the comedy that ages the best in some ways is the stuff that's pretty rapid fire.
Yes.
So the Zaz movies, I think, have aged very well for that reason. But also, I go back to the Marx Brothers in the 30s.
Yeah, yeah. And Buster Keaton, you mentioned earlier. Still so funny.
Buster Keaton as well, where it is keeping the rhythm fast, because that doesn't tend to go out of fashion the same way that other things do. Like, say, the In-Laws for Scott.
And it kind of takes you to bare principles, too. Like, this is what is universal, not universal, nothing's universal, I guess, but these are the bones of comedy, you know? This is the setup, the payoff, and this is unusual in a way that can't be, like, encompassed by just, like, cultural drift, you know? Like, the things that are happening in this movie that are ridiculous were ridiculous then and ridiculous now. Because they are things that, like, nature doesn't do, you know, unless like there's like this really ridiculous cheese pull in the back of the Pizza Hut dance scene where
That's one I recognized the first time viewing it today. I'd never seen that before until today.
And it's just completely in the background. They're just pulling slices of pizza off, and they're just these long strings of cheese. And it's funny because that is just, it's objectively ridiculous. It takes it to a place of like sort of so strange that it escapes time or escapes its context.
Yeah. For me, I think like you both point out some great stuff. I think I'm going to get a bit more in depth with my pick, and I have other ones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could talk about like the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Like skeet surfing and how silly can you get have been in my head all day.
Mm-hmm.
They're actual earworms. I've seen some like comedies and comedy musicals, things like that have terrible music.
Yeah.
I honestly, I can't stand The Greatest Showman. I just can't stand that film. And people think it's like the best music ever. I will point them towards this before I listen to The Greatest Showman soundtrack ever again. But what I want to talk about is set design, which could be quite a boring subject, but it isn't. You take a step back and look at like the bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that scene is shot in reverse, played forward. Mm-hmm. You've got a dog coming into the shot. Like it's a very complicated shot, but just the world that they're living inside of it, that bookstore is very complicated. And the way that set's put together is very complicated. That's all Peter Lamont we're talking about here. Of course, famous James Bond designer coming over, bringing his expertise to this film. All the way down to like putting together that underwater fight in the underwater bar saloon thing. Like that's great. I'm trying to think of some other. Also, I'll throw in a story while we're talking about set design. So it turns out I've been to one of the locations from this film.
Okay.
We mentioned the banquet scene. I was in that banquet hall last year, and I didn't realize I was in it.
Really? What was the event?
It was for Cue the Music here in the UK. And they were at the hotel next door, which the name is escaping me. I'll probably just look it up whilst someone's talking in a minute and tell everyone.
It's not called the Hotel Gayschluffen?
It's strangely isn't. No, it's London town has some weird places, but that isn't one of them. I hadn't really realized I was in it until the other day when I was sort of looking back at photos and comparing it, that they just used that banquet hall as a set. I think it was really great, but there is a lot of thought went into how this film is put together visually, not just from the gags, but from the actual sets they're actually inhabiting. Even like the pizza place, like that is a whole thing there too with the rugs and stuff. And you mentioned the cantilevered like chandelier thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a whole gag made with just people doing wires above. Like it is bonkers the amount of craft that went into this film. And I won't say this film is underrated because I feel like it's a Zaz comedy. People know it exists.
Yeah.
But I do think more people should be watching Top Secret.
I also think, well, like maybe overall the movie, I wouldn't consider it to be underrated. Like I do think people underrate like relatively how hard it is to make a movie that's funny and how important it is that the movie, even if it is lacking in some sort of structure or plot, but the fact that it is this comedically successful is itself so impressive. And I think that actually just that part of it is underrated in that I think overall the movie is successful just based on the success of that one aspect alone. And then on top of it, it's well crafted in many other ways too.
I did look it up. It is the Waldorf Hotel here in London.
Oh, okay,
fancy.
And
there you go.
I was gonna say, like, just the visual design of the movie as a whole is actually really accomplished.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that jumps out to me is the costuming department and the Omar Sharif crushed car.
Yeah.
Suit he
we
wears.
Haven't even mentioned Omar Sharif yet. Like, what a little guest performance! Great.
Yeah, he's great, but like that suit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it looks incredible and it looks painful for the actor to be in. It probably wasn't.
When he gets hit by the the wiper fluid, I guess that's supposed
to
be. The shot holds on him, and you can see the water like around his eyeball that hasn't drained off. I'm like, oh, poor Omar. he's struggling through this.
What a good sport.
Yeah. It's like, they didn't have to go to that level of work.
Mm-hmm.
They could have made it so much easier. They wrote into the script that he was in a crushed car. And we're like, well, let's figure that out and make it look as good as possible and as funny as possible at the same time, which are two different things.
Yeah.
And they pull it off.
Any final likes, anything else anyone wants to bring up?
can I just bring up a few random gags that I like that I don't think I see people talk about a lot?
Absolutely.
Okay, I love the one where he's like, oh, another day, like digging with a spoon, I would have made it. And then they show a picture of like the Lincoln Tunnel.
Yeah. New Jersey 1 mile.
Yeah. And I was like, it's just so good. My dream, I never got to meet Val Kilmer like in person, but my dream for that would have been to bring a picture of the Lincoln Tunnel and for him to just like write neat.
Do you think he would have got it? Do you think he would have got that reference?
Yes. I think, how do I phrase this? I think that the last like 15 to 20 years of his career was a lot of recursive, like other people reminding him of his own work and him reflecting on his own work. So I think he would have pulled like, figured it out. But if not, as you can maybe tell, I have no problem being like, this is from scene blah 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 in
Oh, I think you would have been very confident in him.
Yeah. I also really love, there's like a gag where they're walking on crunchy leaves. Yeah. And then they go shh, and they start walking and it's just silent. Honestly, I found some of the jokes that are most successful for me. This is also why I like Wet Hot American Summer. A lot of the jokes are like editing jokes or jokes that could only exist in film. And I really, really like when somebody makes a joke that is like specific to the medium. I respect that so much because it requires thinking about it in a different way, because you're writing it on the page and you have to figure out like what will be funny in 18 months when we're at, step number whatever of this process. And then lastly, I do love the little horse that is just a little horse who has a cold. And it's just a small horse singing opera. Yeah.
Incredible.
On the way to the potato farm.
Yes. It inspires, I think, the return of horse hearts. With that could be our icon.
The way you said that, as if Emma would know what horse hearts was, I really appreciate the confidence in that, Cam.
It's for the listeners.
I heard this referenced in the Tinker Tailor episode, and I wasn't sure.
Oh, really?
It's like a specter that haunts us. We seem to encounter a lot of horses in films, which is not weird because horses exist.
Yeah,
but like they seem to be focal points a lot of the time, and so we pitched a spin-off where we just do like westerns called Horse Hearts.
Oh, incredible!
It will never happen, but we like to imagine.
If it does happen, I will break my way into the podcast for Tombstone. I'll elbow my way around.
Yeah. Of course. I was going to say about gags, there's one I want to shout out because the ones you named are great, but one that I would be remiss to not mention is when they're on the train and you have the platform moving.
Yes.
And it's like, that kind of ties into what you're talking about, things that can only really be done in the medium. Like audiences are used to that shot of people sitting in a train and then rolling forward. And the way they play with that is incredible and brilliant. And, the moment I think of too is the binoculars where they're watching and then the cows jump through basically the binocular framing, which doesn't exist. That's entirely something people see in movies. When you hold binoculars up to your eyes, you do not see two circles.
Just a small fun fact. They just built that like really big out of just like cardboard, I think, and then just had the cows run over it in real life.
Well, this film does a lot of work with what's the word I'm looking for?
Perspective,
thank you. I mean, the one people always reference is the phone gag.
Yeah.
But there are quite a few of these in this film. And the binoculars one is an underrated one. I like more of the silliness of this film. One of my favorite bits is just before that train sequence. Well, it is part of the train sequence. Is when Val Kilmer's painting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he's doing he's putting the thumb there and everything.
I just tried to do a visual gag on a podcast.
On an audio podcast. We all got it. Trust me. Everyone's laughing. But yeah, it's just like a blur. I just think that's a perfect Zaz joke.
Yeah. It
doesn't get more Zaz.
It's really fun because it walks this line of like how aware the filmmakers are that this is a film, and it makes it funnier that the characters are not aware at all that they're in a film, but they're doing things that would suggest that they know.
Yeah, totally.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Agents, we don't expect you to talk. We expect you to buy a subscription to our Patreon.
That's right. Over on the SpyHards Patreon, we're covering all your favorite spy TV shows, as well as popular films from the most iconic secret agent actors of all time.
Cam, why don't you share some intel on our latest assignment?
Well, Scott, we are marching on from March, and so what better way to celebrate the month that was over on the Patreon than by catching up with the exclusive content re-released. You had reviews of Unforgiven and The English Patient in our Oscar March month, plus we took on the 2005 BBC TV movie Ian Fleming, Bondmaker. Tune in and discover why the real party is going on the SpyHards Patreon.
So deactivate Ghost Protocol and visit patreon.com/SpyHards to truly do things angel style.
But before we close Channel D, on with the Spy Jinx.
Okay, now, for all good there must be bad. Nature needs balance. There must be some things we can critique about Top Secret. Emma, do you have anything to say?
I think I would have to just say that the way that women are written and because like obviously it's spoofing the way that women are kind of portrayed in these kinds of movies, but I think what really actually bugs me is not really quote unquote the sexism, but is that oftentimes that makes it less funny. And so there are some gags in there where it's just like, yeah, like her boobs glow, or like or like, you know, that these girls are stupid, or that, you know, and I think it works in some cases, like the Elvis sequences when the fans are like drooling over themselves and it's Beatles mania. Totally get it, but it's just like, oh, okay, there are really no women of any substance or of any like really good jokes. Like the jokes about Hillary are mostly just like that she has boobs, that she's named after having big boobs, you know, that sort of thing. And so I just think it's a comedic weak spot that is also unfortunate just in that way.
Well, I would absolutely agree with you. And I was at one point in my notes going to lay the blame at Lucy Gutteridge, who plays Hilary Flamont. But I think it's actually just more of a script problem. Like, she's really not given much to do.
No.
And you think of some of the other adjacent comedies, like the Hot Shots films. Like, I can't remember the name of the actress, but she gets a really good sort of co-starring role with Charlie Sheen in both films. I'm just trying to think about...
Oh, Valerie Galino. Or is it Valeria?
Yeah. And then you've got the stewardess in Airplane. You know, it's not really an action role, but she gets a lot to do.
Yeah.
Or, more recently, Pamela Anderson in the Naked Gun remake, or Naked Gun, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Know? That's a good role.
And that's great. A great role for Pam. Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's probably to do with the fact that this film is more of a set of like gags than it is a plot. And they're writing it all from Nick Rivers' perspective.
There's no reason for her to have any substance. Yeah,
exactly. No, I'm completely on board with that one. I think they could have done a better job with it. I think if they'd spent another 6 months actually turning this into a coherent plot, you would have seen her maybe get something to do, because it is her father who has been captured.
Yeah.
Like, there is something... I've seen enough spy movies to know that could mean she picks up a machine gun at some point, starts gunning people down or something like that.
But it's also like, when you think about the movie, and there's a lot of like, you know, straight man, straight woman characters, just comedically, right? That's the way the Zaz formula works. So it's like, okay, Val Kilmer, what are his best gags? Immediately you think of a few.
Yeah.
Nigel, what do you think of? There's a few right there. Like Nigel has a few moments that are very funny. Okay, what are hers?
Like, she rides a bike really fast and her hair is messed up.
Like, I think maybe the funniest moment that I think of with her comes towards the end, kind of that Casablanca-esque ending. But it's her saying goodbye to everyone and then saying, Scarecrow, you know, I'm going to miss you most of all.
Yeah, I'll miss you most of all, Scarecrow. Which, again, I saw this movie before I saw The Wizard of Oz. So I was very confused.
Crazy. Yeah,
that was the one gag where I just had no idea what was going on.
So, like, that moment is very funny, but she doesn't get much through the course of the film. And a lot of her moments that you'd say, someone might highlight a moment, but it's often a scene of her with Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like he's sharing in them.
Yeah.
I think if I'm jumping on this sort of discussion point, and I completely understand discussing the perhaps not the best role for women in this film, I also will say the representation for gay people isn't particularly great. And not that I'm asking for representation for gay people in this film, but there are a lot of jokes made at gay men's expense.
Oh, absolutely. And they're some of the most uncomfortable. And also there's one gag that I think it was meant to be a gag at the expense of like the German national team, but it nowadays comes across as a very transphobic gag.
Absolutely.
And it's also unfortunate because it's like right before one of my favorite gags, which is the Omar Sharif picking up, like, getting sold things by a spy /
souvenirs, novelties, party tricks.
But yeah, those are the jokes that have aged the worst, and I think part of it is just because all they're doing is just saying, isn't it funny if this thing happened? Or isn't it funny that they look like this? And that just isn't actually a good joke.
It's the classic punching down joke.
Yeah, because there's one good lesbian joke in this, which is like, they ask, the like passcode is like, in the Virginia Slims tournament, like, who do you vote for? And they go, like, in tennis, I always root against the heterosexual.
Oh, yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah, fine.
But yeah, it's really not great.
It's like the Nigel stuff towards the end with the cow and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I listen. Yeah. You guys, for people who've been listening to the show for years, know we don't do sort of retrospective morality on things because I think that's an unfair way to judge film. But there are some things that jump out to me as someone who isn't straight. Like I don't like some of those moments, and I will often just sort of roll my eyes at them. And it's not taking me out the film. I'm not saying it has to do this, but I just feel like that joke could have been better, and you could have punched it up where it wasn't like just taking a swing at people.
Yeah.
It is funny though how like the scenes in this film that are maybe haven't aged great in that respect are very quick moments versus like, Scott, you and I talked about the In-Laws remake from the 2000s, and remember how much more egregious a movie like that was.
Yeah, that you think about that was like 20 years later, and that's wall-to-wall gay jokes.
Ugh.
Yeah,
that's not the In-Laws that made the knock list, by the way, folks.
Okay.
Cam isn't that mean. He likes the 70s version for some reason.
Yeah,
I will chime in with, to be fair, there's not a lot of things I really want to add to dislikes, because my main dislike was what I said up front. It doesn't feel like a cohesive plot. The one thing I will say that perhaps I would have liked to have seen more of, and it's hard to say this is a dislike, but it's unfortunate, is that Jeremy Kemp, who I just adore in anything anyway, is kept quite far away from the plot. And he's like the big bad of the film, but he never really gets like a showdown with Val Kilmer. I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get kind of that extended riffing the way you would like when they use Saddam Hussein in the Hot Shots movies.
Yeah.
And make him like a comedy highlight, especially in the second one, where it's like crazy stuff they're coming up with for that character.
The lightsaber battle.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much. But like in this film, the main antagonist, he doesn't really do anything.
Well, his comedy comes from physical acts. Like he's picking up the phone as the boots on the table as if he's leaning back, and it just boots. Like there's a lot of boot jokes in this film.
There are. The cow.
Yeah. If you maybe Quentin Tarantino's a big fan. Oh,
fun fact: to get the cow to actually move, they had to cut out the soles of the boots. So they were like freaking out. They couldn't get the cow to tolerate the boots, and they realized it was because they couldn't feel.
I like that you said move.
Yeah. They were struggling to get it to move. And yeah, so they cut out the soles of it. And so if you see they flop around a lot, the cow's name's Daisy. Yeah.
The cow is like for my dog when I had to he had like surgery recently. I had to put like a boot on his foot, and he was always like kind of walking with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing a visual gag with my hand whilst I'm recording an audio podcast. His leg was jerking out to the side as he was like walking because it's uncomfortable for him.
Yeah.
That cow was not having the best of time with those boots on his foot.
No.
Cam, do you have a dislike for us?
I have one, and the thing is, like, I think you guys have kind of covered it. I think this movie is largely pretty successful. The only thing I'll say is, like, it doesn't go the huge pop culture riffing the way that other spoof movies do. Like, a lot of them feel a little more esoteric. But they get very specific with one I think is aged very poorly, which is the Blue Lagoon.
Yeah.
With the entire backstory of...
There's one great line in it, though, which is that they talk about the brutal Santa Ana winds. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. But yeah, all the stuff with Hillary and Nigel and their backstory. I mean, I guess, Emma, you're saying like that stuff still works. Because to me, like, I go... Boy, no one remembers the Blue Lagoon at this point.
I don't get that reference.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a reference to something. Like, I really just thought they actually talk about this in either, I can't remember if it's interview or a director's commentary or something. They were saying, like, with the Blue Lagoon bit specifically, they were thinking about how any reference that they made had to stand alone. And I kind of go back and forth on the Blue Lagoon gag, which is that when I first saw it, I didn't get that it was a reference to something, and I just thought it was a little too long to be a standalone gag. And so I think now, like, with my perspective, having, knowing what it is a reference to and things, I honestly think if it was a little shorter, it would be fine. Like, that's really...
Yeah.
Well, like, with Hot Shots Part 2, there is a spoof of a scene in the movie No Way Out.
Yes.
Where it's like a love scene in the back of a limo. Now, No Way Out isn't necessarily the best remembered film for a mainstream audience going to see that movie. But I think comedically, it doesn't matter. It's actually really well...
Like, it transcends the fact that you get the reference. Yeah.
It does. It does transcend it. I don't know that the Blue Lagoon stuff does transcend, especially when he's returning and he's made to look like... I think it was Christopher Atkins was the star of that movie, I think. But he's made to look exactly like him.
Just stop. So you're telling me the stuff on the island and how he looks, Nigel, when he appears, is a reference to something. I didn't even know that.
Oh.
Yeah, it's all Blue Lagoon.
Right. Okay. I just thought they were just doing.
I thought he was just oiled up.
Yeah, I just thought he liked
no
being oily.
No,
yeah.
It was a movie with Brooke Shields and I think it was Christopher Atkins about two young people on an island and kind of coming of age, and it's sort of like a very somewhat steamy, sexy sort of coming of age thing on an island. And so that's why there is that kind of overtones to the movie that I think are lost on an audience now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough. I don't think the film relies on that too much, which I'm thankful for. But I get what you mean, Cam. I think let's go to final notes and then the knock list. So for me, I've got I've used most of my notes. I have one question. So Emma, I'll throw it to you. Do you have any final notes you want to bring up about the film?
I think I got everything. Yeah, no, I'm really happy to be able to talk about this, and I'm hoping that that more people will watch it. That's always my goal.
That is always the goal. Cam, do you have a note for us?
The only thing I had was the action's really fun in this movie.
Yeah.
And one of my big complaints with comedies, spy comedies, is they'll have action scenes where it's just drawn out car chases or action that's just uninteresting to look at. But here, it's well staged and it's funny. Like, my girlfriend came home from work when I was watching this the first time for the interview and walked in the last 15 minutes of the movie and sat down, and it's kind of that siege on the castle. And then the guy falls off the top of the castle and smashes on the ground. And the look of disbelief, she's like, what is happening in this movie? Like, it was convincing enough to her that that I was watching an action movie.
Mm-hmm.
But then something like that happens. It just is immediately like the genius of the Zucker and Abraham's team.
I actually have one note really quick.
Oh, go on.
My favorite piece of Foley. Sorry. My favorite piece of Foley, basically in the whole world, right before the tic-tac-toe, like, gunfight is the chocolate mousse like drinks gasoline, and it has this most beautiful like glugging sound. I've never heard this anywhere else. I dream about how like hydrating it sounds. It is wonderful. And I'm really glad to be able to come on a podcast and be like, yeah, I liked this piece of Foley about halfway through.
That is the film student in you there, picking up on the nerdiest of things, and I'm all in for it. Thank you. I bet that guy felt very hydrated. And having had tasted gasoline in my life, it doesn't taste great.
No.
No, not good, not fun. Okay, well, question then before we get to the final question. There are a lot of songs in the film. We mentioned the soundtrack. Do you all have a favorite song?
Mine's definitely How Silly Can You Get?
Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah, so I'm snapping that one up.
Okay. Let's Cam, I'll go last, so you can pick any other song you'd like.
It's funny because like I love a lot of the music numbers, but it's Skeet Surfin' is the one that I keep going back to. That's the one that really sticks in my head.
And I think that's also like one of my comedy highlights of the film anyway, because there is like the general like funniness of the concept, but then there's the underlayer of the satire of America that I quite enjoy. And I'm not anti-American at all, but I just like, poking fun at things. And this whole like idea of Americana, and we're all going down to the beach, shooting some skeet. Like, I just think that is the most American thing I can think of, and it works beautifully. And it also juxtaposes the scene before of like those Nazis in the room, straight to this Americana thing. Like, I think it's just beautifully done.
I'm always struck by there's that one shot of them running through school hallways with guns in their hands. And I'm just like, I think it's hilarious. You would never, like, that's one of the few things where I'm like, yeah, they wouldn't let you make that today. Like, they just wouldn't. It wouldn't be appropriate now. But it is so emblematic of American culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also love how, like, it subtly descends into madness by the end of the scene. Like, at the first, everyone's loving the skeet shooting, it's great, and at the end there's like a kite surfer being shot out of the sky and all kinds of stuff. Like, it's just really falling apart. It is great. I guess my two favorites have been taken. Let me pull up the full list, because I think there's one I can't quite remember the name of.
I also do want to shout out Val Kilmer's improv bits in Spend This Night With You, where particularly he goes like, I'm standing at the great abyss of love and I'm teetering. He just they gave him his marks, where to get to, what to do when he was going from like suicide to suicide. And he just kind of riffed. And I really love the little sweet nothings that he warbles out.
That's inspired stuff.
Yeah.
That whole sequence. Yeah.
I think like just looking at the soundtrack and sort of seeing which one jumped out to me, I think the other one, like, I'm not a big straight in the rug guy. I think I'd probably go Tutti Frutti.
Yeah.
Like, it's that whole like dance number that's cut into it, all the gags that are there that are very quick and you don't even notice it until you watch it for a fourth, fifth time.
Yeah.
And also, it's Kilmer singing. Give him props for that.
He's great.
You know what that scene kind of reminds me of? The idea of him introducing rock and roll to an audience that doesn't understand it, and he's doing like this classic song. Reminded me a lot of a movie that would come out the next year, Back to the Future, where he does Johnny Be Good in front of a crowd that also doesn't understand rock music.
But your kids are going to love it.
That's right. That's right.
Well, it's time for...
Knock list. Knock list. Knock list. Knock list. The knock list. Knock list. Knock list. Knock list. You need to pick a side.
That's right, it's time for the knock list, the need to see official classics of the SpyHards podcast. If you are unsure of what a spy movie is, boy, do we have a list for you. And I note that there aren't many comedies on this list so far. So in fact, that I would say there aren't any.
There's one, The In-Laws.
Oh, there aren't any on the knock list.
I guess, does Spy Kids count?
No, I'd say it's a kid's film. That's his category as kid's film.
I watched it as a kid and it freaked me out. I was a very nervous child. But I really thought that people I knew would get turned into thumb people.
Yeah, makes sense. What about Our Man Flint?
Cam, why would you pull that reference?
Well, that's on the knock list, and it is, I think, more comedic take on the Bond films.
I think that's not a very well-known film.
But you said there's no comedies.
No, I don't think so. Let me know if I'm wrong, folks. I'm not sure. You could also make an argument for The Wrecking Crew. But let's get to Top Secret, and guests always go first. Emma, you're up. Yes or no, should Top Secret be on the list of either the greatest spy movies of all time or the ones you need to see?
I think an emphatic yes. Because I also think that just by dint of it being a spoof film, you're seeing the kind of cultural rollout of and fallout of other spy films, and so you're kind of you're getting, if not an actual education in those films, you're at least seeing what its cultural imprint was on these directors, and I find that to be kind of a worthy addition.
Can't argue with that. That's a hell of a yes. But there are 3 votes. It could go either way. Cam, you're the swing away.
I'm a yes on this one as well. I think it's nice to induct a comedy onto the knock list. We don't do it very often. And I think this one is working at such a high level. How do you not acknowledge what it's bringing? And I appreciate that it's not tackling the targets that feel safe. You know, James Bond is safe to try to do. People have spoofed Mission Impossible many a times. You know, Tom Cruise dangling from the ceiling. Obviously, that movie didn't exist back then, but that's like the safe things to go to. This movie is looking at the world of espionage and World War II spy films and pulling interesting targets. and having fun with them. So I think this one is a great representative. And I think also you and I have had a pretty patchy track record with 80s comedies. We may have enjoyed them. Jumpin' Jack Flash. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Fun movies to talk about, but I don't think deserve to be kind of carved in stone. And it's nice to have a comedy representative to kind of chronicle the different decades. The In-Laws is a very different type of comedy than what's going on in, Top Secret here in the 80s. And so when we look at things like Austin Powers and what have you going forward, it'll be nice to kind of see which are the ones that are important in their decades.
That's 2 yeses, and so my vote means nothing. And someone, I think, recently said to us that I keep saying that, and that's unfair, and I should give myself props that my vote still means something. But I'm a pessimist at heart, so I tend to think I mean nothing. But for the sake of the discussion, I was on the fence coming into this. I'll be honest. I was on the fence. I had it maybe. In my notes, it says not list, maybe. I think through the process of talking about it, and I think through the process of sort of processing my feelings and thoughts on it, is this, and this is the question, is this a need to see spy movie? If someone's never seen spy movies before and you're like, okay, what spy comedy section, which films are you picking? I'm absolutely going to recommend Top Secret. So of course it's making the knock list. So it's a yes from me. 3 yeses. As such, the film has got that lovely stamp of approval. It is making the knock list. The dossier on the film is complete and filed as classified. Boom! Back of the net. We love it. Emma.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us on the show. It's been a genuine pleasure having you here.
Wonderful. I've had such a great time. Thank you for having me.
I hope it's the first of many. We'll have to find another Val Kilmer spy film, or perhaps push you. Maybe we'll get a Tom Hardy spy film next time for you.
Oh, you did This Means War and Tinker Tailor, so.
You
knocked 2 of them off.
I think there's another one out there. Well, he's got Inception.
Yeah. Oh, and I could speak on Inception. I was a member of the Inception fandom Slack. Chat.
Well, there we go. And Val Kilmer's got Spartan and The Saint.
Yeah.
The Saint, of course. That beautiful flop.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of The Saint, I hate to say.
Not many were.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, where can people find you online and chat more?
Yeah, I guess you can find me on Letterboxd, definitely, at Emma Log. You can find me on Twitter at Miss Megalodon. And
great name.
Yeah, it's an anagram.
Oh, that's incredible.
And I guess Instagram too. I can throw in that. I'm not really on social media that much these days, to be honest. So
to be fair, you'll be tagged in all of our posts this week, so
Beautiful.
I can only apologize for the notifications you're going to get.
Yeah, and I will plug 2 things. I will plug
Go ahead.
The movie The Gallerist. It premiered at Sundance, and I think it will hopefully be coming out at some point. Directed by Kathy Yan. I'm a big fan of that movie. We'll see. I haven't seen the final cut, so we'll see. And because I worked on that, by the way, that's why I'm plugging it.
I was wondering what the connection was. Thank you. Right, we got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was apprentice editor on that. So I was a year, and it was an incredible process. Anyway, and then also, so my friend Noor and I, who are big, we've watched 54 Val Kilmer movies together. Noor is the head volunteer of a queer film festival in Grenoble, France, and we are currently putting together a zine to raise funds because there are some struggles with some fundraising for this year. It's for its 26th year as a festival. Yeah, so it's called Vues d'en Face. I'll send a link to that so that you guys can actually see. But yeah, the zine should be coming out soon, and that'll be a digital zine that you can just buy to help support this really cool queer film festival.
Well, that's your mission, folks. Should you choose to accept it, click the link in the show notes below. Go buy the zine. Support independent film and queer film.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Emma, thank you. We'll see you again for The Saint or Inception.
Yeah.
But until next time, take care.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. Bye.
Well, there you go, folks. Holy smokes, that rhymed. Top Secret is finally in the bag and on, more importantly, the knock list.
Do the Rogue Nation people see this as adding insult to injury? That's what I want to know. Let us know, people. I want to know.
Are they lighting a fuse under us when we're strapped to a log or something like that? Burnt alive like witches.
Exactly.
Blasphemers. I mean, come on now. Let's just talk about that for a second. I know the Rogue Nation thing did stir some of the hornets in the hornet's nest, but I think as far as spy comedies go, Top Secret really does deserve its place.
Especially 80s spy comedies.
Yeah.
And that's something I talked about in the review. It's nice to have a comedy representative from as many decades as we can see fit.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to wedge one onto the knock list just to represent a decade if the decade stinks. But, when you look at things like The In-Laws from the 70s, which is on the list, or you now look at this one as the 80s representative, who knows what, I'm not going to say anything about Austin Powers right now.
Sure.
But if it does make it on, it's a solid representation of the 90s. And so I think that's a great thing to have. And Top Secret, I mean, it's a movie that's thinking outside the box. And that's what we like.
Yeah. And it's not without its couple of flaws, which we spoke about. And speaking of those flaws, we take some of those questions and more to Mr. David Zucker, one of the directors and writers of this film,
the
wonderful David Zucker, who speaks to us about Top Secret, the making of it, and really we get into detail about how this film was put together.
Yeah, and he also talks, of course, about favorites like The Naked Gun and Airplane and many other films.
Yeah, it's he's used to doing interviews about Airplane and Naked Gun. There are, of course, a couple of questions on that, but he's never really done a deep dive interview about Top Secret. So we're getting some information. I'm pretty sure it's not out there on Top Secret. So we're filling in the Wikipedia page for you all once again. So you're welcome. Next week on the show, we're sitting down with the one and only David Zucker. So if you want to hear that, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And as you do, make sure you leave us a little 5-star review as well.
Which would be a better star rating than we gave Rogue Nation, it turns out.
Oh, Cam, it's still fresh. You're rubbing salt in that wound.
I can't believe I'm taking shots at a movie I really like.
That's
the thing.
I would not throw Rogue Nation out of bed in the morning. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Like, it's a film. If it was on television, I'd watch it. I wouldn't turn it over. I wouldn't watch it for 5 minutes. I'd probably let it play.
Yeah, but I would prefer the whole time that Ghost Protocol was playing.
See, I'd be in bed with Rogue Nation, but I'd really be thinking about Mission Impossible 2.
You're damn right.
It's those doves, man. I just can't get enough.
Mm-hmm.
Big thanks, of course, to our guests this week, Emma. They brought the enthusiasm for Top Secret, as did we. There's some links in the show notes below. As we mentioned, you can check out some more of their work. But if you want some more of our work in your ear, you can't get enough. I know perhaps you were put off a little bit by the Rogue Nation review, but maybe we made up for it with the Bone Doctor interview later the following week. And you want some more SpyHards? Well, you can get it. You can get it at patreon.com, and you can spend a little bit of cash, help keep the show on the air, and get access to over 100 bonus episodes of SpyHards podcast. I think that's a fair deal.
Yes, and Animation April is right around the corner, and my pick will actually feature Mr. Val Kilmer, so we're going to keep the Val love going.
We have all kinds of themed months over on the Patreon. Lots of different films we talk about, not just spy television, but we do talk about that too. All on the Patreon. You can find a link to that in the show notes below. And of course, you can come and find us on social media. We mentioned at the start of the show, we're talking about what you thought of Rogue Nation. We're going to ask online what you guys thought of Top Secret. We want to hear your thoughts on social media. But if you would rather just get the message to us direct, and this way you're more likely to get heard on the show, send us an email, mail@spyhards.com. There'll be a link in the show notes below as well. Drop us an email. Let us know what you thought of Top Secret. Does it deserve to make the knock list? We want to know.
We damn well do. Let us know, please.
But until next week, folks, I'll be busy straightening that rug.